Total nonstop action wrestling. This company is...
Oh my God.
This show just gets worse and worse and worse with each passing week. You gotta play this every week. TNA was the worst shit I've ever seen. Total nonstop action wrestling.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, here we go, everybody.
It is the worst show in town.
Buckle your safety belts for those of you waiting all week for this review. My voice is going. I haven't slept in days, it appears. I'm ill, but I'm going to do my best here. But like I said, I don't know if I'm going to have the passion. This was like... I usually get mad at the show when I think, like, you know, if they didn't do so many stupid things, this might be a good show. This, impossible to be a good show. This was like...
Yes.
This was like... I don't even know how to explain it. Like, if they told me, Brian, write the worst Impact show you possibly could, I still don't think I could make one worse than some of the shows they do, and this was one of them. I don't know if this was the worst Impact ever.
I think it definitely was not.
There are shows I've been much angrier about. Now, I will say this. As far as a show building up the next pay-per-view, as far as a show that was, I guess, supposed to... I don't know what it was supposed to accomplish, but as far as accomplishing anything positive, this was, in fact, the worst wrestling show I've seen in my whole life.
As a promotional vehicle, the dirt worst. As it may have been the stupidest show I ever saw. I cannot say it was the least entertaining Impact I ever saw.
There was a level of absurdity here that made it funny in some places.
In a lot of places, actually.
And I don't know. I don't even know how to explain this. It was like it was almost like it set out to be the worst show ever, and it succeeded to such an extent that I almost have to give them credit. But the problem is that they weren't setting out to do the worst show ever. That's what's amazing. They thought this was a good show. They thought this is accomplishing their goals. And their goals are apparently to put heat on the Main Event Mafia. The problem is the combined IQ of this writing team is so low that they don't see what they're doing. They don't understand that their baby faces are useless. Their heels are getting over as baby faces. There is no reason for anybody in their right mind to possibly buy a pay-per-view. As far as a promotional vehicle, as noted, I've never seen a more inept program than the one that I saw tonight. Ever in my entire fucking life.
I've never seen a more destructive show.
And they think it's good. That's what's so amazing about it. You have got to be clinically a moron to think that this shit is good. To have written this and think that this is a positive. You must clinically be a moron. What's below that?
Dead?
What's the lowest? What's the classification of the lowest possible IQ? I'm going to look this up.
I believe that would frankly be clinically retarded.
Maybe.
Maybe severely retarded.
IQ qualifications. Let's try that. Or classifications is probably what I was looking for. IQ. This is very important that I do this, everybody. This is going to get my...
This is the kind of research that you only get on the show.
IQ classifications.
Groundbreaking coverage here.
All right, let's see. Okay, let's see. All right, well, this isn't quite as good as I was expecting, but 130 and above, very superior. Incorrect. 120 to 129, Superior, also incorrect, as far as classifying the folks writing TNA. 110 to 119, High Average, incorrect. 90 to 109, Average, incorrect. 80 to 89, Low Average. I cannot classify this program as average. And a bad ECW show, or I guess a regular ECW show, would be the average. Would you say? Or would that be a regular Raw? I guess ECW would be below average.
In general?
Yeah.
ECW's been pretty good for the past few weeks.
Not tonight.
This week accepted. I would say an average show is probably SmackDown. Your typical SmackDown's average.
70 to 79 is borderline. Still incorrect. And we finally get to 69 and below, which is the 0.1 to 2 percentile, which is intellectual deficient.
That does not sound inaccurate.
I firmly believe that the people in charge of this program are, in fact, intellectually deficient. This is a show that baffled me. Let me actually look. There's also an IQ guide here. Like, 140 IQs are professors and research scientists, top civil servants. 130 is physicians, surgeons, lawyers, engineers. It doesn't have a website. It doesn't have wrestling reporters on here. But I do know that 90 includes laborers, gardeners, upholsterers, farmhands, miners, factory packers, and sorters. And I would, in fact, classify the folks in TNA significantly below 90.
See, I've never met a miner or an upholsterer, but I am assuming they're smarter than these guys.
Yeah.
I've known a gardener or two.
Smarter than these guys.
It's definitely smarter than the TNA crew, yeah.
They could not possibly have written. Let's look at this show. Let's break this down here. And we will go back to this IQ test here as we talk about this. First off, it opened up with a message brought to us by the Main Event Mafia, where they said after years of hard work, young upstarts were attempting to bring down TNA, and the Mafia was fighting tooth and nail to protect it. And the idea was this was supposed to be smarmy and sarcastic, but if you actually watch the show, this was they came off as baby faces here. They are, in fact, doing their best to stop these dipshits from ruining the show.
Yeah, sure.
Am I wrong?
They certainly were portrayed as heroes throughout the show.
Yeah, they were. The idea was that this was supposed to make them come across as bad guys, but it actually portrayed them as heroes, and it was believable that they were heroes.
It was definitely a better show when they took it over. So,
what?
We'll get into that.
Angle was in Jeff's office, hijacking the program. Cornette walked in and said he couldn't do this, and Angle said, I can, and so that was that.
That was that. Now, as I noted when I walked in, I turned to you and said, I have remained almost spoiler-free on the show. I know the general theme is that it's MEM, Impact, and I know a lot of baby faces get buried. That's it. So I sat down and I thought, what's the stipulation going to be? How are they going to determine that the Main Event Mafia is running the show? And the answer is, Kurt declared it, and there was nothing to be done.
There was nothing Cornette can do about it.
No.
And in fact, he came in and he said, I've been told to give you a warning. By who? And what if they disobey the warning?
That's a good question.
I'm asking too many questions here.
And Cornette threatened to get security, and Kurt said, I'll get security. And a security guy came in, and he told Cornette to sit down.
Yeah.
Who's paying the security guy?
Apparently Nash. Or
Kurt, or something.
The Main Event Mafia. They're millionaires. The Millionaire Club.
Yes, so.
So
that was stupid.
Nash and Booker did commentary as Chet, Lemon, and Black Snow. Now, Booker was, I guess, there were moments where he was funny. It became overkill. He was completely out of control.
Yes.
Nash was absolutely, completely useless. I don't think I laughed at a single thing he said. He attempted to be clever. He failed many, many times.
He threw many, many, many inside references, including mentioning someone needed to go to Derby with Rip.
And I do know that there was a moment where Booker left the announce table and they had a shot of Nash, and he looked so uncomfortable, like he knew that he was part of the worst program that there had ever been in professional wrestling, and he was just stuck doing it. So I feel for the man in some ways. We had announced matches for tonight, which were the Kong Taraj against ODB handicap match, Morgan against Petey Williams, with one hand tied behind Petey's back, Rudy Charles and Andrew Thomas are referees against Booker T, and Team 3D versus Sting, which immediately had me asking questions. The first of which was, why do the babyfaces do these matches?
Don't know. Don't have a clue. Apparently, when Kurt Angle took over the company, they were contractually obligated to wrestle in whatever matches he put them in.
why would Petey Williams agree to do this match with his arm tied behind his back? What was going to be the punishment if he said, for example, no?
I don't know.
They would beat him up?
They would fire him?
So instead of getting beat up backstage, he'll get beat up in the ring with a hand tied behind his back.
I guess so.
So that was stupid. And then, if the idea is to put all these babyfaces at disadvantage, why were we getting Team 3D against Sting?
Because Kurt was angry at Sting for speaking out of turn last week or the week before.
Okay, remember that.
Okay, I will remember that.
So we had Charmel interviewing ODB, which was bereft of anything positive.
Charmel referred to her as an obnoxious, disgusting bimbo. And I thought, yeah. And ODB said she was ready to fight. Why? Because she was drunk and horny.
Jacked up, drunk, and horny.
I am not making this up.
Please tell me less.
Yes.
Scott Steiner did the ring intros. This was the only funny thing about this whole thing. And the reason it was funny was because you don't have to script anything for Scott Steiner.
No.
Give him all of Penzer's cards and have him legitimately attempt to read them, and you've got comedy.
And react as he normally would.
Yes.
He attempted to pronounce the names of the women of the entourage. He failed. He gave up at one point. He called them something that was bleeped, and then later he said bitches.
Yeah, he said ODB stood for one dirty bitch.
Yes, and so either he called them something worse than bitch, or they just gave up trying to censor him.
Now, there was one other good thing about this. When Steiner was doing his ring intros, which were, in fact, hilarious, the announcers could not contain their mirth and were cackling. And this was real. Unlike Michael Cole, for example,
right,
who does his fake, stupid-ass laughter and makes it even worse. This was funny, and they laughed, and I was okay with this. Of all things, I can't complain about this. So then we had the match, which I can complain about. This was the worst piece of shit I've ever seen.
For a while.
Kong and ODB. How? I have seen trainees with a week in the ring that are better than Raka Kong, and she's been on TV for months now.
Like almost a year.
So they had a terrible, horrible match.
And by the way, ODB and Sojourner Bolt also quite bad. Yeah,
and a spot where ODB was supposed to dive on all of them, and it took them forever to get in position. And even though this is not live, they did not edit it.
She was doing the corner punches to Kong, and she would throw like 3 punches, which sucked, by the way, then turn and look over her shoulder, and the girl's not even in position yet, so she punched Kong some more. This happened more than once.
Yeah. So anyway, she lost, of course. They beat her.
This is terrible. And by the way, this finished, ODB was destroyed 4-1, Kong pinned her with a finisher, and then Kevin Nash, very casually, as an afterthought, noted that, oh, by the way, ODB wrestled Kong for the title on pay-per-view.
Yeah. Why?
Don't know.
Don't have any fucking idea. So again, who would buy that? No one.
No one. Right. Not one person on earth.
Borash told Cornette that he would handle this. By the way, I've got a debate scheduled with Crumbly on Tuesday at 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
What a showdown this should be.
This is it's for the king of the board. We are facing each other in the next round, myself and Crumbly. He is representing TNA. I am representing humanity. And we are going to have a debate about this subject. And the date has been set. The time has been set. It was agreed to in advance. Crumbly is now trying to claim that he works and he cannot be there at that time. But I do not give a fuck. I will be there at 4 o'clock Pacific Time on Ed and San Antonio's show on Blog Talk Radio. And Crumbly can either be a man and show up or not. I don't give a fuck. I will be there. So, with that said, and by the way, no wonder he's fucking chickening out. Look at the fucking show he's got to defend this week.
Indeed.
Who the fuck could defend this?
Oh, no.
Streak of winning debates is over, you cocksucker. So, we had, and by the way, I don't believe there's been a streak of debate wins by Crumbly. That is the rumor, but who is determining this, and I don't buy this. I don't buy it. Anyway, we had Borash talking about how maybe we should stop this because we don't want people to get hurt. And Kurt said, no, I do want people to get hurt. And then he accused Borash of trying to get with Karen. Karen.
I thought Karen was gone.
Who? What? Why? When?
Don't know.
Where?
I have no idea.
What the fuck did Karen have to do with anything?
Nothing.
Is she coming back now?
I doubt it. All I know is that this segment lasted forever.
And then we had the greatest line I've ever heard, where Angle threw some T-shirts into his arms and told him to, quote, go make some money for this company. What a novel concept.
It was a new and inventive idea by the new...
Go make some money for this company. Who would have ever thought? Charmel interviewed the refs. This also fucking went on forever and was ludicrous.
It was not funny, by the way.
Acting was horrendous. Rudy claimed he was an accomplished amateur, told Thomas to follow his lead. This led to Booker T versus the refs. Again, why the fuck did the referees do this match? Thomas actually tried to leave early, and Charles told him, no, we got to do this. Why?
Don't know.
Why do you have to do this?
I don't know.
Now, another question. Why were the referees facing Booker T? The answer was because Shane Sewell and Earl Hebner had made life difficult for Booker T.
Right.
So why wasn't he facing those two?
Well, Brian, because he was facing these other guys instead to get back at them.
So
Simple.
why was Earl Hebner the referee?
Well, Brian, because all the other refs were busy.
All the other refs were busy, you say.
Well, two of them were wrestling here. Hebner had to ref. Sewell wasn't dressed to ref. Maybe he was banned for the building.
Intellectual deficient.
Indeed. So
they had the match. Booker T killed both men. This went on fucking forever. And
the highlight was Booker T. He killed Rudy Charles for a long goddamn time. Andrew Thomas is on the corner selling this beating. Booker T hits his axe kick on Rudy Charles. He takes the limp body, takes him by the hand, drags him over to the corner, and touches that hand to Andrew Thomas, who is now the legal man. Thomas couldn't have jumped down from the apron.
No, there was nothing he could do.
He had to hold his hand still and not move so Booker T could force this tag.
He was trapped.
Stupid.
Glued in place.
Frozen in time.
Gets better. After the referees got beaten up, and seriously, this went like 5 minutes.
Yes, this got more time than like Alex Shelley and AJ Styles.
So after they're killed, finally Shane Sewell runs out. Where the fuck have you been, geek? So he runs out to make the save, and Booker T immediately lays him out.
Destroyed him. Made his own comeback. Humbled him.
And later they announced Booker and Sewell at the pay-per-view.
And at that point I said,
this was supposed to make us want to buy a pay-per-view to see a match between these two men.
And I said, wait, didn't Booker T destroy him earlier?
Indeed.
And you said, yeah. And I said, okay.
Intellectual deficient. Nash alerted Angle there was a hot chick in Section 3. Angle said he'd see if she could show her boobs. We never heard anything more about this.
So apparently she didn't.
Then Sting walked in and wanted to know what the hell was going on. And Angle basically said, hey, it's they have to tag. This is not 2-on-1. You can beat these two guys. And Sting said, well, in a few weeks we're going to be in the ring together, and you need to decide if you want Sting friend or Sting foe. Again, that's supposed to make us want to see this four-way with the Dudleys for the title.
To see, yes, to determine who the best wrestler in TNA is, a four-way where we don't know if anyone can trust each other.
Sharmell interviewed Morgan about his match with Petey, and he said he was going to kill him.
Oh, hang on. Go back to that four-way for a second. The two babyfaces seem to be getting along. It's the heels who don't know who they can trust and may have to fight against overwhelming odds alone.
Of course.
Of course. We could not do worse than this.
Morgan and Petey, of course, had to have his hand tied behind his back. And, again, why the fuck did he agree with this?
Don't know.
Okay, it gets better, though. If he would just have had his hand tied behind his back and beaten up and pinned, that would be fine. We could think, okay, this guy's just a goddamn fucking idiot. That's why he agreed to do this match. Fine. But that's not what happened, you see. Morgan beat him up for a long time with his hand tied behind his back. And then Steiner went to consult with Morgan. And as he's doing so, the referee untied Petey.
Why?
It doesn't matter, though.
Okay.
After he untied Petey then started to make a comeback with both of his arms.
Right.
So he agreed to the stipulations. He had enough honor to abide by these stipulations.
To allow the referee to tie him up in the first place.
But then when the referee illegally untied him, he was fine with running wild at that point.
He had enough.
Why didn't you just not tie your hand behind your back, you fucking moron?
Don't know.
So he ran wild, and then, of course, he was still pinned.
He was still beaten.
Way to go, Petey.
Way to go, Petey. You fought a fair fight and lost.
Incredible. So then the Mafia beat on Petey, and Eric Young, Jay Lethal, and Consequences Creed hit the ring.
Should we do some math at this point?
So we had Eric, Lethal, Creed, and Petey.
That's 4.
Against Booker, Steiner, and Morgan.
That's 3.
So it was a 4-on-3 babyface advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Now keep in mind, of the 3 heels, one of them, Booker T, brought a house mic into the ring and was doing commentary at this time.
Uh-huh.
And the heels still beat them up.
Destroyed them.
2 heels and a heel with a mic doing commentary beat up 4 babyfaces on their own.
Right. Had to make sure they didn't get over. Had to make sure no one liked them.
What an amazing program.
This was one for history.
So then after 4 babyfaces get beat up by 3 heels, one of which is carrying a microphone and doing commentary as he does it, they go to commercial, and when they come back, there's Team 3D in the ring. Where in God's name had they been for an hour?
Not saving people.
Where in God's name had they been for an entire hour?
You know, if it was 4 on 3 and one of the 3 has a mic, maybe 6 on 3 would have resulted in a death.
Were they playing
maybe
Foursquare?
Maybe the more babyfaces that get involved, the worse beating they take.
Hopscotch? What were they doing backstage? I don't know. So they did their promo. Bubba did his usual nonsensical promo about how he was mad at Sting because Sting was the guy that didn't beat him up several months back. And anyway, this led to Sting against Team 3D in a handicap match. So, of course, Sting is beating up these men 2-on-1. He's supposed to be the heel. And ended up with Steiner took the ref, and then Kurt ran down and gave Bubba a low blow to lead to the finish, you would think. But no, Bubba, of course, kicked out. So kept going, and then Booker ran a ringside, and then we had Sting DDTing Bubba, and Bubba kicked out. Team 3D hit Sting with the Doomsday device, and then Angle ran in for the DQ. Why did Angle make this match, Vinny?
Because he was mad at Sting.
And why did he save Sting?
He changed his mind?
He changed his mind.
I guess. I don't know.
He changed his mind. He was so angry at the man, he signed him to a 2-on-1 match, apparently as punishment. And then when the punishment was being doled out, he saved the man and ended the match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm intellectually deficient.
I don't know either. And
perhaps it is me.
By the way, not only is it stupid for Kurt Angle to save Sting, Team 3D couldn't pin Sting 2-on-1.
No.
He couldn't let...
To set up maybe a pay-per-view match? No. Are you kidding me? That would make people interested in the match.
Why would you want a challenger to pin the champion leading into the match? That would be silly. And, yeah. And one final note before we move into the post-match shenanigans. Booker T spent the majority of the match here discussing Team 3D and their 35 title wins, whatever it is. And he was mentioning how a lot of them were in ECW, which he said does not count. When you sell a DVD in Japan, that doesn't make you a worldwide company, he said. So he basically pointed out that Team 3D is not nearly as cool as they think, and they're not really that big star.
They said, you got about 8 titles. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Those other titles are all fake. Way to go, Booker. So, and of course they called him fat as well. So then we had Booker going to get a table to kill the babyfaces I don't know who.
The fat guys.
The fat guys. And then out came Foley, Abyss, Homicide, and Hernandez. So it took 6 babyfaces to run off 3 heels.
Yeah, because Sting disappeared, so yes.
Yeah. 6 babyfaces to run off 3 heels. And then Foley, completely out of breath, announced that Hernandez had got fucked in his world title shot, so he was going to get another one, quote, at another time to be determined. And he also signed Steiner versus Abyss in a weapons match where Abyss can use weapons and Scott cannot.
Right.
Well, I'll get to that later, but why doesn't Foley just fire these guys?
I don't know.
They're such a fucking big problem.
I don't know, but
he's apparently got the power to take back the show. Why don't you just fire these dicks?
He made the stipulation where Abyss could attack Scott Steiner with, for example, a sword or a knife, and Scott cannot defend himself only with his bare hands. And Booker T said, that doesn't seem fair.
And then, of course, the main event he signed was Angle versus LAX.
So, for the second time on the show, we would get a 2-on-1 handicap match where the 2 were the babyfaces.
Yeah.
Seriously.
After commercial, Foley... Oh, I already got that one. Then we had Cornette telling everybody to go back to their post. So Penzer was on the mic, and the blonde did her duties. They announced the pay-per-view matches, and who gives a fuck? We had Abyss and Steiner in a weapons match. Now, again, the stipulation was that Booker could use weapons, or not Booker, I'm sorry. Abyss could use weapons, but Steiner could not. And I thought, why can't Scott use the weapons? Like, let's just say he uses the weapons. What happens? DQ? Because if it were me, unless I'm intellectually deficient, if I were put in a match where my opponent could use any weapons he wanted, and I could not, I think the first thing I'd do is use a weapon. End the fucking match and get me the fuck out of this one-sided ass handling here. So that's not what happened. Steiner, who could not use weapons, got the heat.
He fought valiantly.
Yeah.
He stood before the monster, the armed monster, and fought to his heart.
Yeah.
For honor.
So, of course, we got a match here, and Steiner finally hit Abyss with a pipe for the DQ after being beaten on for like 10 minutes, and continued to pound on Abyss with a chair, and suddenly Suicide made the save. And again, I ask, where the fuck were you? Were you putting your outfit on for the last 90 minutes? What in God's name were you doing when the show was being taken over by the heels?
You know, speaking of where the
Setting up your fucking zip line?
For the matter, we should be asking this question a few segments ago. Where the fuck was Mick Foley?
He was gone.
Where?
I don't know, the In-N-Out Burger.
He's the owner, the default owner
busy.
of the company.
Why
they have one show a week.
Why should he be on time for the one TV taping
But you have to ride the Hulk roller coaster one more time?
It's like on Raw when they said Shane and Steph couldn't be there because they had an investors meeting. And I thought,
scheduled for Monday.
You've got 100 and some odd hours in the week, and this is the time you fucking schedule a meeting during
Monday
your live
evening.
show.
Yes.
So I don't know where the fuck he was, but he wasn't here. So that was sucked.
Yeah, Scott Steiner got to kick out of everything here. He got hit with a garbage can, kicked out, got chokeslammed on the garbage can, kicked out. And then there was a spot where he whipped Abyss into the corner. Abyss tried to do like the handstand, like Scott Steiner was going to run under him. Yeah, good one. I'm sure that'll happen. Scott Steiner did not run under him. He kicked him in the balls instead, which is the wise thing to do.
We had Brutus Magnus debuting next week. Talk about shit.
They showed clips of the European tour talking about how successful it was, and here's Samoa Joe, the guy who's out with a broken arm, wrestling.
Yeah. You know, somebody, maybe it was Lance or Dave or somebody mentioned how stupid this was. I think some people on our board were going off about, come on now, why is this stupid? It shows people that, whatever, anything can happen at a house show, or you might get a surprise or something like that. No, this is stupid. On this show, on this same show, earlier in the program, they talked about how Jarrett was at home injured. That was said on this program. Mm-hmm. And then later in the program, the announcer set this up. This wasn't like a commercial. This wasn't like something that was shown during the commercial break that was not actually part of the show. The announcers who are going with the storyline, the announcers are actually playing into the storyline that Jeff Jarrett is home injured. The announcers introduce the segment that Jarrett is in wrestling.
Right.
Huh. Intellectual deficient.
Right. And speaking of, we were then had livestock.
And by the way, for those of you wondering why I'm saying intellectual deficient and not intellectually, I'm just reading this thing right here. 69 and below, 0.1 to 2 percentile, intellectual deficient.
They're so dumb they cannot properly use adverbs.
Or say deficient intellectual.
Either way.
Anyway, that's what this was, intellectual deficient. So, Lauren interviewed two cowboys and a bull backstage, hyping up a show next that had some cowboys in it that looked way more exciting than the show that I was watching. And Beer Money then showed up and proceeded to be awesome. And Storm started talking about how he rode off on one of the cowboys' mothers. And the second his cowboy heard this, he reached for Storm and they cut away and we never saw anything again. Oh. So, if you watched any of this show and you saw some of the horrible bullshit that we saw in some of these matches, including the women's match, that they did not edit out, imagine the depths of horrible this must have been to have not made the show.
How bad this brawl must have been between Beer Money and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
It was... I don't know. It was really an amazing segment start to finish. Just coming backstage to the girl, two cowboys, and a bull. Just standing there.
A giant bull.
Just stoically.
Then we had LAX and Kurt Angle. And this was stupid on a number of levels. Not the first of which is, of course, it was a 2-on-1 handicap match with the baby faces having the 2-on-1 advantage. Angle, of course, fought valiantly and got the heat. He was dominating the match. And he's beating the shit out of Homicide forever. And then they had the awesome spot where Homicide hits a dragon screw and starts working the leg.
Yes, he got to his feet. He grabbed Kurt's ankles and put it on some offense.
Speaking of Rip, he cannot watch this show. His life will end.
Oh, you don't say.
He will die. I can only imagine you know what would happen if Rip was doing an Ohio Valley show, Rip Rogers, and in the middle of a main event match, first off, this match never would have been booked. But let's just say it was a tag match.
Let's focus on this spot itself for a second.
If in the middle of this match, Rip Rogers was watching, and the babyface that was getting beaten on made a brief comeback, and instead of making the tag after all this time, started working over the heel, Rip would have walked out of the building, got in his car, and drove all the way back to his home.
Seymour, Indiana,
which is like a 2-hour drive. He would have gone home, and you would not have seen him again. That is what would have happened here. But, of course, in TNA, agents, intellectual deficient, writers, intellectually deficient, person owning the company, intellectually deficient, wrestlers, apparently, intellectually deficient. Everyone's just a moron. So this was just a goofy spot in the middle of the match, and Homicide looked like a goddamn idiot because of it. And then, of course, Hernandez came in, ran wild.
Without a tag.
And then, like the Bull earlier, he charged an Angle. An Angle waved the red carpet or whatever, and Hernandez flew outside like a fucking moron. And then Kurt Angle pinned Homicide clean with the Olympic Slam. He beat the tag team champions, if they're still the tag team champions, I forget. Maybe they're not. Maybe it's beer money.
They beat the top babyface tag team.
Beat him clean.
2-on-1.
2-on-1.
Took down 2 men by himself.
One on
of
2.
whom, by the way, was promised a world title match in the future. But he could not win this match with the help of his partner. What a goof he must be then.
This is the worst.
I'm trying to think. When I mentioned Hernandez came in with no tag, he was in with no tag for seriously like 2 minutes. There are matches on the show that do not last as long as Hernandez ran wild with no tag. And Don West said, well, what's the ref going to do?
Yeah, what's the ref going to do?
Disqualify him.
Are you kidding me?
I guess not. So the show finally ended. We saw a shot of Samoa Joe's back and his back hair, and he was growling and snorting. He said, you're about to see the real Samoa Joe. And he turned around, and he was even more Samoan because he had face paint on.
I am spent. Folks, that was the least productive wrestling show. In fact, that was the most counterproductive.
It's destructive.
That was the most
Self-destructive
destructive wrestling show I think I've ever seen in my whole entire life.
It was astounding.
I don't know. And one for the ages right there. One for the ages. To the back! All right. TNA opened with a recap of last week's show, which was just as stupid in highlight form as it was watching it live.
Yeah, so Raw tries to cover up their mistakes. Impact recaps them.
We had I still can't get over the wacky titles. This week it was called Family Before Ego. I just love it because it's such bullshit.
It's
like they write these scripts and they're so fucking proud of the shit they've created that they feel the need to title it like it's some work of art.
Yeah, it's very pretentious for something that sucks so much dick.
So the Mafia came out to open up the show, and Nash talked about how old and broken down he was, and how whenever he didn't like somebody behind the curtain, he got rid of them. But there was one man who he wanted to get rid of that was still around, and it was Joe. He is still angry about Joe saying horrible things about Scott Hall. And for those of you that recall, the reason Joe said horrible things about Scott Hall was Scott was supposed to headline a pay-per-view and no-showed a fucking pay-per-view. So apparently this is not Scott's fault. So anyway, Angle showed up, and anyway, Nash challenged Joe to a match at some point when he's healed. And then Angle talked about the 4-way for Sting's title and said he could guarantee one thing, that the title will remain in the Mafia. No shit! It's not going to be on Devon Dudley
No.
or Brother Ray.
No.
Thanks, Angle. There's nothing to this.
This was 10 minutes of just time wasted.
The Blonde interviewed Team 3D about the pay-per-view, and Devon goes, Kurt may be the best wrestler to ever lace up a pair of boots. In fact, he may be one of the best wrestlers of all time.
I guess based on the first comment, he was concerned that Kurt would be, you may interpret that as saying Kurt is behind a long line of great Samoans.
Sure, a great line of barefoot wrestlers.
Yeah.
Like,
or hillbillies.
Well, yeah. Or Kevin Von Erich.
Kevin Von Erich. That's pretty much the list. Kamala.
So, then we had them talking about...
Because God forbid someone thinks Kamala's better than Kurt.
Yeah. So then they started talking about last week. And Bubba said, Kurt, last week you threw Sting to the Wolves so that he would be softened up for the pay-per-view. That's apparently the storyline. Kurt sent Sting to the Wolves to soften him up for the pay-per-view. Now, for those of you that didn't see last week's dumb shit show, who were the Wolves that Kurt sent Sting to?
Team 3D?
Why, yes, Team 3D, who are also in the main event. Worse, he threw He threw him to the wolves and then saved him
from the wolves. This company sucks. This show fights.
It's like every single solitary segment, they have to find something stupid.
Trying to count the logic holes in TNA over the course of a year is like trying to count the stars or the grains of beach on the sand. It cannot be done.
The grains of beach on the sand?
Grains of sand on the beach, even.
Then we had Dancing to Beat the Devil. Where's that song? I'm going to play that song.
At least this one I just screwed up 2 words. The other one just made no sense.
Dancing to Beat the Devil?
Yes.
It's made great sense.
Dance Revolution?
No, I mean, I can understand the Dancing to Beat the Devil as a saying, but the fact, it was funny because that's the saying you came up with. That was the first thing that popped into your mind. She was dancing to beat the devil. Not that she was just cutting a rug or something wacky. We had Rough Cut with Kiyoshi, which was awesome because they had comments from Shelly Sabin and the fucking Great Muta himself.
Indeed.
That was great.
He was speaking Japanese with English subtitles, except when he said the word spirit, which apparently they just used the English word for, which is cool.
We had Shelly and Sabin. Or no, first, I just want to mention this because it annoyed me. Consequence Creed and Jay Lethal did a promo about how they still supported the front line. Why? I have no idea. But they do. And then Lethal starts talking about Ted DiBiase, Virgil, and the Rockers. Cue laugh track. Yeah. TNA should have a laugh track. That would actually make the show significantly better.
There's a clip on YouTube where they added a laugh track to TNA.
They did! That's right!
And it's awesome. And you know what? It can work every week.
I gotta find that. What the hell is it called?
I forget. It was the episode where Kurt was in the tanning booth and lost his clothes. I remember that. But before the Consequences Creed Jay Lethal promo.
You just keep talking. I'm gonna find it.
They aired a recap of the rescue that these men tried to perform when, you recall last week, the main event Mafia, 3 of them beat up like 6 guys while Booker T was doing commentary. They replayed this, everyone. They wanted to make it clear that the baby faces, though having the numbers advantage and having one of their opponents doing commentary on a mic, still cannot put up a fight. So they showed this garbage, and I wrote down, not on purpose, not until going back over my notes later, rescue recrap. A Freudian slip if ever there was one. So, Lethal and Creed are cutting their promo, and they're not angry that they had the numbers advantage and still got beat up. They're angry at the machine guns for not fighting alongside them. 6 on 3 or whatever it was not enough. 8 on 3, that would have been a fair fight. That's what they would have needed. 8 on 3, including one guy doing commentary on a mic. So the fault here is not on themselves for sucking or their teammates who were in the ring for incompetence. No, it's on the machine guns for not tipping the scales out of balance enough. So that was retarded. And then, this is a little thing, but they were in the locker room. What the hell
was that called? The TNA sitcom.
They were in the locker room, and hanging from a locker in the background was a T-shirt that read, "I run with werewolves." What?
I don't know.
Why do you do that? Why is this T-shirt there? And if there's no good reason, then someone should have moved it. But it's TNA, so they did not do a second take. They just left the "I Run with Werewolves" T-shirt there. Any luck on that search?
I found something, TNA Impact the sitcom.
That sounds right. Oh!
Here we go.
It had to be a board member who made this.
Not quite as funny if you can't see the, Jeremy Borash is JD.
Sometimes you just get a feeling like you need some kind of change.
There's Pyro here. And Kurt Angle. Oh, this Pyro's ghetto.
Don't say it.
Here's Don West and Mike Tenay giving a high five! Woo! With Don West and Mike Tenay. This song never gets old, by the way. Oh, here we go. Created by Vince Russo. God, what an idiot.
And his idiot friends.
And introducing the Low Rent Monsters. We've got Abyss. We've got the Voodoo Chick. Alright, here we go. Show's about to begin. TNA Impact is taped at Universal Studios Florida in front of a live studio audience.
Kurt,
Go away.
it's JB.
So what?
He's in the tanning booth, everybody.
Kurt,
What?
Jim Cornette sent me. It's important.
He's in his thong.
No, I don't think that's going to fly. Jim Cornette sent me here to get you to go see him.
Can't you see I'm busy? Hey, were you looking at my package? You were looking at my package. Don't look at my package. Well, listen, you tell Cornette there's only one star here at TNA. I'll get the heck out of here.
What is it? You want me to tell Cornette that you're too busy tanning to see him?
Would you stop it? You're damn right you tell him in a tanny bed. This is part of my maintenance program. You know how hard it is to be Kurt Angle?
It's better.
Tonight, they're calling it the revenge match. And
Oh, is that what they're calling, huh? They're calling it the revenge match? The revenge match. How many chances is this guy gonna get, huh? I'm the champ. And the champ never asked for anybody's help. But tonight, somebody's got my back anyway. And that's James Storm. And James, you want to say something about that? Say it right now.
That sounds good.
AJ, I didn't know you spoke Spanish.
Spanish!
I said after a match and after you win, we're going out drinking.
Promotional consideration provided by the following. PW Insider. Free t-shirt with every visit. My computer got AIDS and PW Insider. Cool! Oh, we're back.
Where's my underwear? Are you wearing my underwear? No, I don't wear underwear. I got you. Free baller, huh? Well, you know what? I'm going to find out who's messing with me, and I'm going to mess with them. My stuff. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Excuse me. Have you seen my stuff? What? Oh, you never seen a guy?
You know what's the funniest thing about this whole thing?
Probably not. Oh, my jokes.
The funniest thing about this whole thing is this was right around the time that I think it might have been either the whole Benoit thing with Nancy Grace, or it was right around the time that the WWE started doing some serious drug testing. And meanwhile, Angle is walking around the Impact Zone in nothing but a Speedo, fucking jacked to the gills. Bigger than you've ever seen him before. I thought, what an irony. These people are so fucking stupid. Now, it was right when the government was starting to crack down, when they were going after WWE and asking him for all this info. And meanwhile, on TNA, there's a guy just gizmoed out of his mind, running around in his fucking underwear on Impact. All right, where were we?
The Motor City Machine Guns versus Jay Lethal and Consequences Creed.
I'm losing my voice here. Go ahead.
Alex Shelley, some of you will recall, last time they had a pay-per-view, won the X Division title, pinning his partner.
Oh, that's right, when I said that it would never be followed up on.
Have they been on
And they
TV
mocked
since
me.
then?
Yeah, they have.
Okay. I don't remember seeing... I know for sure... Well, maybe I'm wrong here, too, but I don't recall him defending that title. All I can think was, what a shitty reign this has been. He won the X Division title, and his profile dropped.
Yeah.
He became a smaller part of the show.
Yeah.
A poor title reign. So, they were having this great little match. And, oh, no, I'm getting ahead of myself already. Before the match even started, the Don West or Mike Tenay, one of them noted that the Motor City Machine Guns were frontline members in name only. What in the hell does that mean?
I don't know.
Is this a trial separation? Is the paperwork waiting to go through? Is there a waiting period when you leave the front line? Why don't you just say, we're not in the front line anymore? Or the other guys could say, you're not in the front line anymore. Why is this a gray area?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So, before the match could even begin, Lethal and Creed, who I guess have a title shot on Sunday, they were attacked by Beer Money, the tag team champions.
Yeah.
They had a very, very long brawl. They brawled all over the place in the crowd. It was on a split screen, so you could see each pair of guy fighting. Meanwhile, the Guns were just chilling in the ring. Actually, they were on the ropes shrugging, as if to say, what the hell is going on? And I thought, I don't know, Alex and Chris. I don't know what's going on. And as this brawl is going on, finally, Creed and Lethal began to turn the tables. And they began to fight back in the fire back at Beer Money. And Don West says, perhaps the sneak attack will backfire on Beer Money. They're going to win now because they were sneak attacked?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't see how this could backfire at all. But, in fact, it did not backfire. They achieved their goal. They whacked Creed on the elbow with a chair, and he was taken out.
Then we got the Machine Guns against Lethal 2-on-1, and they were beating on him, and finally outran Eric Young to just jump on the apron and be the surrogate partner. And then he got the hot tag, ran wild, and won. And I was completely fine with that. Fine with that. And then afterwards, Eric ended up cutting a promo saying that, or Shelley cut a promo. Shelley was so mad that Eric had beat them that he offered to put his title on the line at the pay-per-view. And Eric said he would as long as Shelley didn't bring his life partner along.
Maybe they need that book.
I was going to say, cue that book over there.
Yeah, once they actually got settled down and had a little wrestling match, it was fun. And then there was a promo back and forth that all made sense and led to a match on Sunday. So, way to go, TNA!
Plug the pay-per-view, which is absolutely no buys. We had Cornette meeting with the Kong Tourage, and he said Kong and ODB Sunday needed to be one-on-one. Of course, none of the other matches do. Just this match. That's the stipulation.
Just this one.
Straight wrestling match is the stip. So, Sojo then got in Cornette's face and said one day they would be face-to-face. Think about that, by the way. And then she was going to beat his ass. So, he booted them out. And then Booker walked in with a ref shirt and said he wanted to referee Shane Sewell against Sheik Bashir, and Cornette said no. Whoop-de-doo.
I didn't even note the match. There was too much going on. It all happened too fast. All I knew is Booker wanted to be a ref about something and didn't get to, so why should I care?
I don't know. Blonde interviewed the beautiful people about the match with Roxy and Taylor, and they threatened to massacre them. Velvet said they'd do things that would put a slaughterhouse to shame, blah, blah, blah. Point is, before the fake Sarah Palin angle, this crew was hot.
Mm-hmm.
And not just physically. They were a hot act. Now they are so fucking cold.
Yeah.
This was so bad.
They came out and they tried to cut a serious, angry, terrifying heel promo.
They tried to cut a babyface promo. Two babyfaces that got screwed. And they're heels.
That's also true, but yeah, the point being, it was not their usual wacky, funny, we're hot people promo, and it sucked.
Yes. Then we had a match which sucked even worse. It was the beautiful people against, actually, no, that was later. Or no, it was. No, it was later.
Later, yes, there was another match first.
Sewell and the Sheik.
And this is when I realized this match is happening. Shane Sewell is now just a wrestler again.
Yeah. I mean, at least 2 weeks after he became a ref, Mike Tenay said he'd been reinstated. Now he's just a ref again, or a wrestler again.
Was he disinstated?
I don't know.
Was he revoked from the referee's roster?
Again, there's idiocy in every single TNA segment on every show ever. It's incredible, quite frankly. So they had a fun little match, which was at least fun. And then, of course, we got a ref bump, and then Booker came down in a ref shirt. 2 refs followed him down, but he just got in the ring anyway, and they were unable to do anything. So then, of course, they did a bunch of complicated spots, and finally Booker attacked Sewell, and they finally called for a DQ. And then Sewell started firing up, and they sent out refs to break it up, and that was that. So this was supposed to make us want to buy the pay-per-view, and it failed.
Boy, did it fail. Like everything else on this show. Yeah. I don't know. I have nothing to add to this segment. Brian, let's move on.
Morash interviewed Sting about Angle and Team 3D, and he cut a babyface promo and said he carried the belt with honor and prestige and all that was good in pro wrestling, and if anyone else won it, that would be tarnished. And Borash said, what about Kurt? And then Sting just bailed. Ooh. Showed a replay of the Palin bullshit, and then we got beautiful people against Roxy and Taylor, which was goddamn horrible. The babyfaces came out laughing at having humiliated the heels, which made them come across as heels. And then Angelina and Velvet attacked them and beat them up. They killed Roxy. Velvet and Roxy was some of the worst shit you'll ever see, by the way. Not Rocca against ODB, but close. So then they beat on Taylor 2-on-1. And then Roxy finally returned and got the hot tag. And as soon as she got the hot tag, she was immediately beaten and pinned.
A burial.
Completely jobbed these two out. So we waited all this time to see the beautiful people humiliated, and then they immediately went on a tear and killed the baby faces. So then it gets even dumber. So then they're beating up the girls, and they're bagging them. And suddenly, who should come down and make the save but Sarah Palin, the fake Sarah Palin, who's now just called the Governor.
The Governor.
And she, low-blow Kip, beat up both girls. So yes, one tiny woman beat up a full-grown man and 2 women all by herself.
Not just a full-grown man. Kip.
Yeah.
That guy's huge.
Yeah.
She destroyed him. This is dumb. So apparently, it's going to be Roxy Taylor and the Governor against the beautiful people in cute Kip.
I guess.
That is so no buys.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is the Governor. The mind boggles the stupidity of this particular gimmick. The Governor.
Yeah. The Governor.
So, does she think she's Sarah Palin now?
I don't know, Vince.
Do beautiful people still think it's Palin and they hate Alaska?
I don't know. I do not have an answer for this idiocy.
Dumb!
Bruce Magnus debuted to face the Shark Boy. He's a jacked up dude that used to be on UK Gladiators. Very green. Although, given his experience level, he's not bad. Certainly better than all the shitty women in the women's division. So, they spent the whole match putting over his amazing finisher, and it was a Samoan drop.
Yes.
Wow.
Talking about how it has a name in Latin meaning like torment and destruction and torture. And yes, it's his Samoan drop. Yeah. And also, by the way, they talked about what a great debut it was. He went toe-to-toe with Shark Boy.
Yeah.
And Shark Boy gave him all he could handle. That is not a great debut.
He wants some competition at the pay-per-view.
He wants some competition.
It'll be live.
Yes. He issued an open challenge. I can't wait.
Angle did a promo saying he didn't need any help from Sting Sunday. He was going to prove that tonight. And Matt Morgan faced Rhino. And they're playing up that Rhino has lost his passion. Why? I do not know. Something about the front line. Could not possibly care less. Match was all right. Morgan hit the kick of doom. And then went outside and laid a chair in mid-ring. He was going to do his finisher onto a chair. Ref just stood there. Did not give a fuck.
No.
So then Abyss's music hit, and he ran down to the ring with thumbtacks, which Rhino just disappeared, so he truly doesn't care. So he spread them all over the ring. Morgan saw it coming and fled. And then after commercial...
Yes, they went to commercial, and I thought, well, see, there's something. They brought out the tacks, and then Morgan fled. So they didn't come out and right out and say this, but they told the fans here, indirectly, but they told the fans, if you buy the pay-per-view, you will see a guy go into tacks. And I thought, well, okay. There's something that you have to pay to see this, and I thought that makes sense.
So then Abyss came out and did a promo, and he said he wanted to introduce Matt to his real best friend, a man not named Chris, but a man named Abyss. He said he'd had a really shitty life, got a very passionate promo, and talked about how Morgan called himself the DNA of TNA, but he was going to show everybody right now what happened when you added the Abyss chromosome. And he proceeded to start punching the thumbtacks and glass that he had spread out on the mat, lodging thumbtacks and glass deep into his flesh. He screamed, he bellowed, he said he was going to kick Morgan's ass at the pay-per-view. I realize it's not saying much, but it was the best promo of Abyss's career.
Yes.
I don't know if it was worth the pain and suffering and permanent disfigurement for this Impact segment, but this man is clearly a fucked up human being, so more power to him, I guess.
If that's what sets him off, then great. But yes, we have seen this guy. He has, there's a line running through the tattoo on his left arm from where Sabu cut him up with a barbed wire. We saw him lit on fire not that long ago, and now he is punching thumbtacks and scarring his hands up forever. And then he held his hands up very, very close to the camera to see where the thumbtacks were sticking in and where they had fallen out, and there's blood everywhere. And remember what I said about having to pay to see someone go under attacks? Never mind.
Yeah.
Here it was. It looks exactly like this. No need to pay for it now.
Barash interviewed Foley and wanted to know an update on Jarrett. And I thought, did you not watch the show last week, you dipshit? They had footage of him wrestling in the UK. He's fine. And Foley said, well, you can ask him next week when he'll be here. Whoop-de-doo. Jarrett's coming back next week. So then we had Angle and Sting against Team 3D, and Sting offered a tag early, but Angle shunned him. So Angle ended up working the match all by himself. And not only that, he got the heat on both babyfaces. Kurt Angle, working alone, was beating up both babyfaces. So then they set out Scott Steiner as a peacemaker for Angle and Sting. And I thought, why are you out here? Angle is kicking ass.
Yes.
Why do we need to make peace between these two men? So, finally, Bubba got hot tag, ran wild. They cut off Angle and hit the Doomsday Device, but then Booker and Steiner hit the ring for the DQ. And Team 3D made a comeback as Sting stood and watched. And now Steiner was suddenly having to stop Angle from attacking Sting. I don't know why. I don't think I missed something. I think if you watch Impact minute by minute, second by second, you could watch it a dozen times and you still wouldn't know what's going on half the time. So this was, in fact, the final go-home show for the pay-per-view. And I cannot imagine any rational human being purchasing it.
No, and considering their fans are irrational, I can't imagine that they added a single buy in the show. And if there was a chance that anyone other was on the fence, they certainly decided not to. It was a bad show, as Impact always is.
Bad show. To the back! I'm here with Vinny, recapping the TNA pay-per-view, and this ain't gonna last long. This show was bad.
Mm-hmm.
The show was not any good.
No.
It we knew it was gonna be bad going in. It exceeded expectations.
Yes, exactly. I had very low expectations going in, and they failed to meet them.
I thought the show would be, on paper, it looked like it was going to be an average show. Maybe a couple matches it would be good. In fact, go to the Sunday news update and read my preview of it, and you'll see exactly what I expected. It failed to meet those low expectations. There was one pretty good match on the show, which was the opener. Mm-hmm. There was one good match, which was the beer money match. And the rest was below average. Yeah, you got some of it significantly below average.
Peaking it below average and dipping as low as fucking awful.
Just some bad stuff on this show.
And it also is one of the classic. It felt like one of the classic TNA pay-per-views. They used to be 2 hours and felt like 3. This was 3 hours and felt like 8.
It's a long show. It opened up with the main event Mafia arriving. No Sting. He arrived separately, and Team 3D arrived separately as well.
I will say that I'm not a car guy, but all 3 of these arrivals were done in sweet, sweet vehicles. There's a stretch Humvee, Team 3D showed up in this convertible thing, and then Sting showed up in this yellow sports car, and they all looked like stars.
They opened up the video package. They always have that show opening video package with the Darth Vader guy. And he said, and I quote, that things that happened tonight would be remembered forever.
Well, that's a lie.
That's what he said. Remembered forever.
I didn't take note of anything he said. I just know he said at least 1,000 words. This package was also long.
Alex Shelley faced Eric Young for the X Division title, and they had the best match on the show. It was 3.5 stars. Did a lot of cool stuff. I was hoping it would be better, but they did a whole bunch of moves. They did a whole bunch of spots, and then at the end of the match, for like no good reason, Eric Young started arguing with the ref, and Shelley rolled him up and pinned him.
Yeah. Eric Young, the babyface, who was in control and had things going his way, decided this would be a good time to pick a fight with the ref, shoved him, turned his back to Shelley, and got rolled up and pinned like a fool.
Good match, lame finish.
Yeah, it was basically an Impact match with about 6 minutes of decent heat in the middle, which is a fine way to have a little match. And I kept thinking to myself, I wonder why they can't do this on Impact. I know we've been asking this question for years now, but why can't they do this on Impact?
It was all downhill from here.
Yes.
We had Borash interviewing Angle about the main event and asking why he and Sting showed up separately, and Angle said they were both winners, they were going to work together tonight, and at the end of the evening, the Mafia would be closer than ever. So I figured he was turning on Sting for sure, and I was wrong, but the Mafia was not, in fact, closer than ever at the end.
You're wrong so far.
Scott Steiner faced Petey Williams. Well, no, he said at the end of the evening.
I see.
The evening's over. Scott Steiner faced Petey Williams. Petey is, in fact, still dressing like the guy that beat him within an inch of his life in a gang, I guess a gang hit in the parking lot. So, way to go, Petey. This was never explained. Even Nash and Booker were making fun of him on TV for still dressing like Scott Steiner.
Right.
So, they had a match. It was exactly what I expected. It went too long. Steiner got really tired. Couldn't do a thing. He beat the hell out of Petey forever and kept lifting him up at 2. He would hit a big move for the pin, but then lift him up at 2. He did this at least 3 straight times. So I thought, wow, well, here we go. Petey's going to get a win when Steiner slips on a banana peel. This will get nobody over. So they kept going, and did some more moves and this sort of thing, and Petey finally made a little comeback and tried his pescado into Hurricane Rana and got powerbombed. And then Steiner put him in the recliner, and Petey struggled and valiantly got the ropes. Don't ask me how.
He dragged Scott Steiner to the ropes.
Yes. He is smaller than me, everybody.
Yeah.
For those of you that have met me. He is smaller than I am. And he dragged Scott Steiner to the ropes in the Steiner recliner.
And Steiner outweighs me.
And then Steiner just hit the screwdriver which is his suplex into a pile driver, and pinned him.
Right.
So, in the end, this wasn't even slip on a banana peel fluke win.
No.
Petey was beaten approximately 6 times in one match.
Yes.
Way to go, Petey.
And
Way to go.
All his moves were complete failures to pull off. He tried the Destroyer, didn't work. He tried his Pescado into a Hurricane Rana. That did not work. He was completely punked and made to look like a fool here.
Star and a half, and that's being generous.
My favorite part of this was Petey started his comeback, and he had a move, and the screen kind of digitized, and for about 4 seconds, we got a blue screen and music with the words, TNA Technical Difficulties. That needs to be the next name of the pay-per-view. TNA presents Technical Difficulties, only on pay-per-view.
And the fans cheered Steiner, and he grabbed a mic and told him to shut up. And he said he was going to show the people how he finished the job. And suddenly actually he gave him the Samoan drop off the middle ropes and was going to put him in the recliner again. God knows why, since it's completely ineffective on Petey Williams. But then we had Joe's music hit. He appeared on the big screen and said he was going to kill Steiner first. And this was enough for Steiner to... I guess, leave Petey alone. His appearance on the big screen.
He was watching his back. There's 2 entrance ramps. He was watching each one for something to happen. Nothing happened. And they cut to the announce desk where Mike Tenay and Don West began to babble. We could see the stage up behind them where Petey Williams was very nonchalantly just strolling to the back. Not selling his head, his neck, his back, anything. He was fine.
Here's a feud we've never seen, by the way. Sting Samoa Joe and Scott Steiner.
No.
We actually have seen it numerous times, and people care less and less with each additional attempt, which I don't think is how it's supposed to be done. But Foley did a promo and told Sting he was a great wrestler and he respected him, and Sting cut a total babyface promo saying he was fighting for respect, and he also said tonight the Mafia would be back strong as ever. So, there you go. We had Brutus Magnus coming out for an open challenge. It was accepted by Chris Sabin, and... it's kind of funny, during this match there were chants of Fire Russo and boring. Now, of all the things that TNA has done, this would be low on my list of things that people should chant Fire Russo for. But the problem was that people are used to seeing Chris Sabin in great X-Division style matches. That was not what we got here.
No.
So the people were so angry that they chanted Fire Russo and boring. Boring during a Chris Sabin match. So
that is a first.
Like a total babyface. During the finish, he went up top. The ref and Magnus got in an argument. The ref shoved Magnus, and Magnus flew into the air like he'd been shoved by the great Khali, hit the ropes. Sabin was crotched. Magnus pinned him. This did nobody any favors.
No.
Star and a half, again, being generous.
Yeah, Brutus Magnus is kind of TNA's answer to Vladimir Kozlov, the big scary foreigner. Who has a good look and not a lot else going for him. His promo was pretty good, but he cut before the match, talking about a challenge and stuff. And yeah, when they started chanting Fire Russo, all I could think was, he had a new guy, issue an open challenge and then face it, and it's kind of a waste of Chris Sabin. They could have had anyone else do this match and had Sabin as something good, but...
It could have been Kip James, everybody.
That would have been, sure, that would have been fine.
No, it would have been worse.
Well, it would have been a worse match. But it would not have been a waste of Chris. I guess if you're going to have Chris Sabin.
Chris Sabin having a match with Brutus Magnus is better than Chris Sabin not having a match.
Okay, that's fair. But, yeah, all I could think was, of all the things to chant Fire Russo for, this is not what I would have picked on the show.
Team 3D did a promo about the main event, and Devon said at the end of the night, no matter which of them won the title, they would become better partners. And Bubba said they were correct, and they went to go talk to Sting. We had Awesome Kong and ODB for the Divas title. I've seen these guys wrestle before, these gals, actually.
Oh, I don't know.
It's never good. And this was more of the same. They had a horrible match. Kong has a bad back, which made it even worse. They had I guess to waste time, the Kong Tourage came out, and Cornette had banished them from ringside. They came out anyway. Just disobeying the orders, because why shouldn't they? So he finally came out and said if they didn't leave in 10 seconds, he would strip Kong of the title. Now, how he can strip Kong of the title, yet not restart a match on pay-per-view, I don't know. I don't have an answer to any of these questions, everybody.
Stop thinking about it.
So, anyway, he ruled that. They ran away. This resulted in a horrible match. ODB made this horrific comeback, and then Kong cut her off and hit the implant buster clean pin. Half a star. Also, probably generous.
Yeah, It probably doesn't matter because the Kong Tourage was evicted before the match began, but Raka Khan came out and when she was wearing pants. She has one thing going for her, and it's her ass in the tight shorts she usually wears. They put her in pants to render her completely useless. But then they kicked her out anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. The highlight for me for this match was the commentary by Dawn West, who, when Kong went to a bear hug, which was met with complete silence by the crowd, by the way, she went to this bear hug, and Dawn West said, "It's like a boa constrictor around your body. That's what they do." And I can't argue. Boa constrictors around your body would squeeze. Then later, Awesome Kong went for a splash on the middle rope, and she missed. Dawn West said, "You should use your brain and get out of the way." Your brain.
Yeah.
So if your brain is below average, you might decide, I will lay down here and take this splash from Awesome Kong.
Sure.
But if you use your brain, then you'll dodge.
We had Team 3D meeting with Sting, and Bubba gave him the big speech about what a jerk he was for not attacking him when the Mafia jumped him several months back. He said Sting had the opportunity to do the right thing, but he did not, and this made him mad. Earth 2 Dumbfuck. He had the opportunity to do the wrong thing, and he did not do that either. I still understand why it is such a bad thing to not have joined in the attack. You were attacked by 4 men. The 5th man did not attack you, and you're the angriest at the man who did not touch you.
Yes.
Stop this angle.
He should be 5th on the hate list. He is 1st. That makes no sense. And to make it even more no sense, he told Sting tonight he had done the wrong thing before. Now it was time to do the right thing.
Yes.
What would that be?
Well, he said that, I don't know, but what he said also was, he said, Devon and I are going to try to win your title. But if the real Sting shows up, we're going to have your back. What does that mean?
I have no idea.
How do you have his back and still be trying to fight for his title?
Don't know. And then they left, and Sting kind of watched them walk away, and I swear to Christ, he looked as confused as I was.
The storyline is so fucking lame. Then we had Booker T and Shane Sewell for the Legends title, and Booker beat on him.
Legend this was.
Booker beat on him forever. Sewell sold and got all shaky, and he did his big comeback, and then Sharmell tripped him, and Booker axe kicked him for the pin. Just like that. Way to go, Shane Sewell.
Yes.
1 star. Generous.
That's very generous, actually. But yeah, this was Shane Sewell working a Hulk Hogan match with the exception that A, he is not Hulk Hogan, and B, he was completely jobbed out at the end. So yeah, it was pretty much a failure. It was a waste of my time. It was a waste of fans' money to providing this. The only highlight was Shane Sewell dumped those stupid wind pants with the ref stripes on them. He is now wearing jeans. It looks much better. And also they noted that Booker T, for the Legends belt that he invented that he carries around, allegedly paid $14,000 for it.
Wow, $14,000. There's an example when you lie. These guys are supposed to be millionaire legends, and all he could afford was $14,000. Even New Japan claimed $100,000 for their title, for Christ's sake. So then Booker was being all mean to Shane afterwards, and AJ Styles meandered down to the ring
jogged, yes,
in jeans and a T-shirt. This was his big return. He clotheslined Booker outside. He grabbed the Legends title. He said that, unlike the main event Mafia, he did not grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. And I don't know who he was referring to here, because I don't know.
Booker T did not air.
Maybe there were silver spoons at the Wendy's that Booker T held up when he was a teen. But anyway, he said he wanted to be a legend, and it was time for him to step up and become one. So now we have Booker against AJ Styles for the Legends title.
So for the second time in 3 matches, maybe 4, whatever. So for the second time in the show, we had a heel against a babyface. It seemed like a mismatch of David and Goliath, and indeed it was, with Goliath killing David.
Yes.
Then after the victory, went to kill him more, only to be saved by a returning babyface.
Yeah.
It was the exact same segment, and it was no good either time.
Then we had Matt Morgan against Abyss in a horrible match. They did a...
Where to start?
Here's where we start. So at the beginning of the match, Abyss tries to grab some weapons, and the ref says, "No, you can't use those." Now, weapons are against the rules, apparently. So, with that out of the way, the ref saying you can't use weapons, they proceed to go and brawl in the crowd for, I swear to God, 5 straight minutes.
So I already have to stop you for 2 points. The ref pulled the weapon away. Now, I could have sworn this was a no DQ or no holds barred or street fight or whatever you want to call it, but I could have sworn that weapons would be legal in this match. Apparently I was confused. I was wrong. But that begs the question, why did they have a promo on Impact where Abyss virtually guaranteed there would be the use of weapons in this match.
I don't know, Vince.
So, yes, then they did their crowd brawling.
They brawled in the crowd forever, and then they got back into the ring, and then just started using weapons.
They brawled in the crowd forever. They brawled in the crowd forever more. I went to the bathroom for a long time. I came back. They were still brawling in the crowd.
And then, as I noted, they got back in the ring and started using weapons.
Right.
The same weapons the referee told them they couldn't use at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
So they kept using these fucking weapons, and then they kept doing more wrestling. Morgan had a shoulder injury going in, and then they did a double clothesline spot, and he said, and I quote, "Oh shit, oh shit."
Right.
And then he suddenly began to suck. I don't know if he tore his pec. I don't know if he hurt himself worse. I don't know what happened. He could no longer take bumps. He could no longer do anything. They did a bunch of lame-ass spots. Abyss finally hit the black hole slam, and Morgan kicked out. Oh, wait, no, hold on a second.
8 million things happened here. It's going to get very confusing.
It doesn't matter. There were 2 ref bumps, or there was 1 ref bumper. Doesn't matter. Anyway, Abyss hit his finish. Morgan kicked out, so Abyss hit it again, and he didn't kick out. Whoop-de-fucking-do. So then afterwards, he went for the tax and spread him out. They made a big deal out of it, and then as he was about to throw Morgan into it, Morgan just went away. That was the end.
Yes,
This match sucked.
I went -2 stars. It was bad. The only other thing worth noting was there was a bit where Abyss laid a chair on Morgan and went to do like an earthquake splash on him, and Morgan suddenly turned the chair sideways, so Abyss would land on it with his balls, only he turned the chair sideways way too early, and Abyss saw this guardrail, charged at it, and nutted himself.
Yeah.
Fool!
Idiot. Then we had Booker freaking out, and Nash told him to shut the fuck up. Booker was almost crying. Why, you ask? Well, earlier he got clotheslined. Yeah. So then we had Angle sitting down with Sting and telling him that Bubba didn't give a shit about him. Shit, I say. That's okay, but bitch is not. So for those of you keeping track of what's allowed and not allowed on TNA. So he tried to turn them against Bubba and Devon, and Sting shook his hand and they hugged, and then Angle told Kevin to keep an eye on him. For what, I don't know. Maybe he's going to put on a different color paint before the match.
Two great questions here. 1, why do you want somebody to keep an eye on Sting? 2, of all the people to shadow Sting and keep a low profile, you took the 7-foot oaf?
Yes.
To sneak around the building and follow Sting at a safe distance.
Mere Money and Consequences Creed and Jay Lethal, 3 stars. This was the only other good match on the show. They did a lot of comedy early. They did some awesome stuff in the middle, including their Beer Money Superplex, which is the most awesome spot in wrestling.
It was particularly awesome this time because they hit their double superplex, and they got to their feet selling. And I thought at first they were going to do like the clutching their back but still scream beer and then money. But instead they recovered, then made eye contact, and then dropped down again. Awesome, awesome men, these two.
Of course, that led to actually, they got the heat twice, and then finally, Lethal got the hot tag. Jackie tried to interfere. They did a bunch of spots, and then Storm just wrapped a chain around his fist, punched Lethal, and Rude pinned him. There you go.
Yeah.
Way to go, baby faces.
Yes, that was not a good night for them. The only other thing of note here was the way Lethal got the hot tag was Beer Money was beating up Creed in their own corner. Lethal could take no more, charged in, noggin knockered the heels, then hip tossed his own partner back to the corner, and then ran back to make a legal tag. This is a spot taken directly from the Rock and Roll Express playbook. That means somebody here, I suspect the heels actually, but somebody here has been watching the Rock and Roll tapes. That's good. Then
we had the main event, Sting, Angle, Devon, Bubba for the TNA title. Yes, Bubba and Devon fighting for the world title. They had a match. I don't even know what to say about it. There were...
Well, it started with the Team 3D was running wild for a while, and they were allowing each other to go for pins. They were not breaking each other up. And then it came down to those two alone in the ring, and they had the big face-off, and they did exactly what I thought should happen, which was they touched, Bubba took a giant bump, Devon laid on top of him and went for the pin, and the heels ran in to break it up. Because the whole point of this feud, this match was, it's more important to have the belt on your team than it is to be, to hog the glory for yourself. So this makes sense. Then, 2 minutes later, Team 3D was just...
Not even 2 minutes later. They did the laydown spot, and then the very next thing they did, they had another face-off, and then they locked up.
They just started fighting.
No, they locked up, and they started doing chain wrestling. And then they just stopped doing that and began punching each other.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Foley was trying to explain that laying down for their opponent, or for their brother, and doing chain wrestling is not what Team 3D is all about. That's why they're fighting. You don't say. What? Please explain. So then they did a horrible high spot. Nobody cared at all.
No.
They squared off at the end, and everybody cheered briefly, and then nobody cared again. They did some spots with, these convoluted four-way goofy spots that were just... I'm sure in someone's brain it looked good because they were envisioning it in like a giant WWE ring or at WrestleMania. It did not work here. They did these stupid four-way spots. They had Angle and Sting working over each other. Angle got busted open over the eye. And then...
Bubba, at some point, was thrown, I believe, by Sting, but he was throwing it over the guardrail into some fans' laps. And I thought, okay, there's a little wacky spot. And then Foley or somebody on commentary noted this was a local DJ who had been bad-mouthing Bubba on the radio.
Oh.
In their pay-per-view main event.
Wow.
They took a shot at a local DJ.
Yeah.
Dumb! And then a minute later, West asked Foley, hey, what's it like doing commentary without someone shouting in your ear?
Ha ha ha.
And Foley began to mock Vince. And I say again, this is a pay-per-view main event.
Yeah.
Dumb!
So then Angle ended up outside, and then Sting just pinned Bubba with a death drop out of nowhere.
They did a bunch of near falls that no one cared at all about.
No.
And then, yes, Bubba dumped Kurt, and this led us back to the ring, and Sting hit the death drop and pinned him. There was a point where the heels took their submissions, the ankle lock and the scorpion death drop, and neither one got the win, obviously. Then the faces, that being Team 3D, they tried to hook submissions. I don't know if these men have ever applied a submission hold before in their life, because they did not know what they were doing. They each grabbed an opponent's legs, then they switched. They dropped the guy they had, and they went over to the other guy and grabbed his legs. Then they switched a second time, and then Bubba Ray Dudley applied the ugliest figure four of all time, while simultaneously Devon Dudley applied the worst Boston Crab of all time.
I think it's the other way around.
Well, regardless, there were some ugly submission holds here.
Bubba had this figure four on Sting, and Devon had this crab on Angle. So Angle, in the crab, climbed on top of Sting in the figure four and tried to pin him.
Right.
This didn't work.
No. Sting, while in a figure four, was able to kick out.
And he wasn't selling the figure four. He was just selling it like he couldn't move his legs. So then Angle sent Devon outside, I guess with his great leg strength. So Sting is still in the figure four. Angle covers him again. Sting kicks out again. And because Kurt Angle could not pin Sting with 2 tries, he then proceeded to save Sting. He kicked Bubba and broke the figure four. So anyway, as stupid as this all was, afterwards, Sting is celebrating with his belt, and Mick Foley goes, I'm now going to do what I promised. I'm going to go present the belt to Sting. I thought, he's got the belt. Didn't matter. Foley got in the ring. He said, Sting, give me the belt. He took the belt, and then he gave the belt back to Sting.
That's awesome.
Swear to God. Then the show went off the air with Angle all mad that he didn't win the belt. This show sucked.
It did.
This show sucked. Thumbs down, and I got nothing more to say about it. Yes, except for the 3 people. Actually, you know what? We had a list of, I wrote no buys, and someone was very angry and emailed me and said they were buying. So we confirmed 1 buy. And then apparently somebody else on the board confirmed they were buying. And so somebody made a list of those 2 people plus Crumbly as the 3 buys.
3 buys.
And as it later turned out, even Crumbly didn't buy the show. He pirated it.
Of course not.
So he is a hypocrite, number 1. Yes. And number 2, even the most hardcore TNA fan I know did not bother buying this show.
No.
So way to go, TNA.
So we have 2 confirmed buys, and I'm willing to bet there was 2 disappointed buys as well.
Well, I bought it, so that's 3, and I was disappointed. And Dave bought it as well, and he was disappointed. So we're at 4 confirmed buys for this pay-per-view. And none of them were happy, to my knowledge. To the back! All right, let's get into Impact here very quickly. All right, open up with Angle and Sting against Team 3D in the opener, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a match, and of course Kurt and Sting could not get along. And Angle sold for a while early and then tagged Sting, and somehow this led to them getting in a fight. So the Mafia came down to break it up, and then they went to commercial, and then when they came back there was more, and Sting finally got mad when Angle wouldn't tag in, so he slapped him, slingshot him into the ring, and Angle was subsequently pinned by Devon Dudley. This made Angle mad.
Well, I can see that.
Hard to believe. So he cut a promo on Sting, called him a disgrace, and long story short, told him that later tonight he needed to come down to the ring, lay down, and Angle was going to cover him and be given the title, because the title should be on him for the best interest of the Mafia. So then Jarrett came down and said, no, you're not going to do that. And Kurt said, fuck off, this is mafia business. And Jarrett said, I'm the founder, so this is my business. And they yelled back and forth for a while. And then Sting finally said, wait, Jeff, I'll handle this. Kurt, I'll see you later on. And that was the end of the segment.
It was a very long segment. In fact, it was actually 2 segments, maybe more, because I think the match went over 2 segments, and then I think the promo was its own segment. But a couple things here. First of all, as the show opened, Don West was saying the pay-per-view ended in controversy. There was a controversial ending between Sting and Kurt Angle. And I thought, why? Bubba Ray knocked Kurt Angle out of the ring. Sting pinned Bubba Ray. Sting wins. What is controversial about this?
Well, made Angle mad.
So anyway, so having this match, and here's Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, who basically almost every day of his life has woken up and thought, how hard can I work today? What can I do to make myself better? And he's in there with Bubba Ray Dudley, who perhaps wakes up and thinks, what can I eat today? How can I make myself whiter? And Angle went for a waist lock, a common wrestling maneuver, only it didn't work because he cannot get his arms around Bubba's enormous gut.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter, Bubba Ray Dudley double-legged Kurt Angle.
He did. He double-legged him and took him down.
What in the hell was this?
I don't know what they were doing.
So they had a little match. The deal was first Kurt was wrestling and he refused to tag Sting in, much like he did a week or 2 ago. And then finally he decided, wait, I'm getting my ass kicked. This is dumb. Thanks for me tagged Sting and bailed. So now Sting was in there, and now Kurt refused to tag back in. So it was basically a handicap match between Team 3D and Sting. They could not beat this man. No, they tried their hardest. They went for all their moves, and he fought them off until finally he pulled Sting.
Why are we reviewing this again?
Because it's all so dumb.
Enough of this. There's enough dumb stuff to talk about.
They cannot beat Sting, but they beat Kurt Angle on a flash pin.
Yes.
Stupid.
All right. Borash interviewed Booker about what Sting had said, and Booker said this is a family matter. They were all a family. Sting had no choice. So then Borash wanted to know about how AJ took the Legends title on Sunday, and Booker said AJ was a thief, and they had the police and the FBI on the case.
You know how great those skits would have been?
Yeah. So it gets better, actually. So he goes into his dressing room, and AJ is there, and he attacks Booker T. Now, I could have sworn that in that same segment, Booker said he'd stolen the title and that the FBI were investigating. I don't know how difficult this case would be, mind you. But they're brawling around in Booker T's locker room, and guess what's laying there on the table?
Legends
the
title?
Goddamn Legends title.
Yes.
Now, first off, a guy took a belt in a wrestle. I'm not even going to get into this.
So AJ took the belt with him to ambush Booker T in his locker room.
You know, just this whole thing is stupid.
Well, yeah.
I just like that the police are on the case for a belt that was taken on a wrestling show, but a fucking assault is all right.
Sure.
Scott Steiner and Petey Williams in a headgear on a pole match.
Right.
They said Petey wanted his identity back. What does that mean? That makes no sense.
No, none of this makes sense. Don West noted people have been asking why would Petey dress like a guy who abused him, ganged up with other friends and tried to kill him? Why would he emulate this man? And the answer apparently was because he still dressed that way to annoy Scott.
Oh.
So after...
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That wasn't even the dumbest part of this angle. So, Scott Steiner apparently was so upset he demanded this match, which was held to, what did he say? Scott wants to prove he and Petey are done, was what Don West said. And I could have sworn they were done on the pay-per-view, wherein Scott Steiner destroyed him. Just left him laying and was clearly not a contest between these two men. Third of all... Don West said if he doesn't get the headdress, he won't be able to dress like Scott Steiner anymore. This is the only chainmail headdress on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
He cannot acquire
I actually believe that, quite frankly.
I will confess I've not seen them often at Walmart, but Steiner had one, Petey found his own, Petey clearly has a source for these things. So
I just want to know what pole match it was that stole Russo's heart many years ago.
That's also a good question. What on a pole match did Vince Russo see where he thought it was the greatest thing ever? So they had this little match. Scott Steiner destroyed him again. He was mocking him. He put him up on the top rope, reached his hand up to try and get it. Then he climbed up there where Scott himself could easily have gotten the headdress, but instead he hit a Frankensteiner. I
can't believe we're still talking about this match. All I got to say about this match, this is all you need to know. Nobody sold a goddamn thing, including Petey hitting Scott Steiner twice with a steel pipe, and within 10 seconds, Steiner was not selling, and then he binned Petey, or he knocked him out, and went up and got the headdress. So it sucks to be Petey.
It was even worse when Petey sold for the first, 4 minutes. He took a big Frankensteiner, and then Scott went to climb the ropes. Petey had one powerbomb off the turnbuckle, completely stopped selling, was totally fine, and did not take the opportunity to climb.
Match sucked. Then Joe appeared on the screen and said he was going to kill Steiner. Then we had Borash interviewing Sting about whether he was going to lie down later. And see, here's the great thing about this. Borash was asking everybody if they thought Sting was going to lay down. Sting had earlier said, I will see you tonight, I will do this. So even in the fake world of TNA, even in the TNA universe, everybody expects everything to be a swerve.
Yes.
Awesome. So, who did he ask?
He got Foley.
Foley. And Foley ended up talking about he plugged his own segment later, and then talked about the wrestler, and he said, Borash, have you seen it? And Borash said yes, and Foley said, makes you think. Yeah, it does.
I don't know. I don't know. I just like that.
Thanks for plugging WWE's angle.
Yeah. I just like that as he was plugging his hardcore moments, one of them was, and this is almost his exact words, AJ Styles not noticing I was laying under a table and jumping off it and almost breaking my leg. Which we noted.
I know you're going to want to talk about this for 20 minutes, but please don't.
The Battle Royal?
A women's Battle Royal for the Knockouts title. We had Angelina Love, Taylor Wilde, and that was actually good. And then it went downhill because we got Velvet Sky, Sojo Bolt, Roxy, Raisha Saeed, Raka Khan, Madison Rain, and then ODB. It was an ungodly, horrible match. I mean, epically bad. And ended with Sojo Bolt winning. And so it's now Sojo versus Kong. And keep in mind, all three members of the Kongtourage were in a match to determine who's going to get a shot at Kong. Mm-hmm. So UFC needs to employ some of these people. They will actually fight each other.
Yes.
So that was the match. It fucking sucked.
It was horrible.
Nothing else to say.
It was in points slightly better than the SmackDown Battle Royal from last week. That being said, there was abject silence for this, particularly in the end when it came down to Madison Rain and Sojourner Bolt.
Yeah.
Fighting for the number one
in a
contendership.
singles match now.
Yeah, and you've never seen the Impact Zone quieter. This was the TNA equivalent of like Mabel versus Savio Vega for the King of the Ring finals. just bad.
Now I'm going to praise TNA here. I've actually got something positive to say.
I describe this as library heat.
They did a big video on the Ultimate X, a rough cut. And they had quotes from all the guys, they had clips from all the matches, and in I don't know how many minutes this was, in 1 minute, they did more to hype up Ultimate X than WWE has done in 3 weeks now to hype up the Elimination Chamber.
That's probably true.
Way to go, TNA.
They described it as grueling, it was athletic, you had to be an athlete to even try, it left your hands worn raw, it left your body sore. The only knock I would have on this was, AJ Styles says Ultimate X is hard to explain. They immediately cut to Alex Shelley, who explained Ultimate X precisely in 15 words or less. There's a bunch of cables, they make an X, whoever gets to the middle and grabs the X wins. Right!
Then
everything else was awesome.
Sorry. Then we had Shelley and Saban against Lethal and Creed, which actually, let me tell you something. This is the first time I've ever written this. If this had gone a couple of minutes longer, this would have been better than every match on the pay-per-view. I have never written that about an Impact match before. So, this was actually really good. Didn't go all that long, but for as long as it went, it was good. And Lethal ended up pinning Shelley with some sort of wacky move. And then the Machine Guns offered a handshake and then kicked him in the nuts and flipped him off. And, of course, the fans cheered this act.
Yeah.
And this surprises you why,
I don't
TNA?
know. Yeah, I don't know. But, yes, Mike TNA is still using the front line in name only claim for the Machine Guns, so I don't know how many weeks that's going to go on before things are just settled. I've made all the jokes about trial separations and whatnot. It's just a stupid thing to say. The match was really, really good, but it was the old 8-minute match squeezed into a 4-minute time frame, and they just did everything really, really fast. And the crowd started off really hot in minute 1, and in minute 2 they were kind of hot. In minute 3 they were like, okay, we've seen every move. Minute 4 they're like, okay, now they're doing every finish we've ever seen. Okay, the Guns lost.
Disagree. This match was great. Don't listen to Vinny, everybody. Now, something we can agree on, the shittiness of ODB's angle. Every time they air one of these, it's the new worst thing I've ever seen in wrestling.
All I can say about this, at least it was short.
There is a contest. Apparently you can go to TNAWrestling.com, and you can send in a video. And on the next pay-per-view, they're going to announce one fan who wins one night with ODB.
Okay. They did not say that on the segment.
What are you talking about?
No. All they said was, people asked me, is there a man in your life? Is there a woman in your life?
You're wrong. I know where you're going. They had a graphic on the screen that said, one night with ODB.
I missed the graphic.
That's right.
I see.
They had a big graphic. One night with ODB.
I was trying furiously to jot down notes, so I missed the graphic that was on screen for a half a second. What I heard her say was, she explained that people always want to know if someone was in her life. Then she said, send in a video, and I will pick one. I didn't know what that meant. Pick one or do what?
One fan that sends in a video is going to get one night with ODB. I was going to make a joke about Crumbly, but I can't even do that. Anybody who enters this contest should be castrated. I'm saying that right now for the good of humanity. This segment sucked. Brutus Magnus was the guest.
Brutus
that
Magnus
actually made it worse.
He came in his bad Halloween costume gladiator gear, and suffice to say, within 15 seconds, he was so sick of this bullshit that he left.
I have no idea how this made television.
I have no idea what they were thinking. It was, like I say, the only thing I can say about this is that it was short. On a bullshit per second ratio, it was as bad as anything I've ever seen, but the number of seconds was very low, so it was not the worst thing I ever saw, but god damn it was horrible.
Nash did a promo saying he wished this was really the Mafia so they could actually go out and kill dudes that fucked with him.
He said
That's actually what he said.
You
yes.
were not exaggerating.
No. Then they brought a camera into Abyss's therapy session.
He also made a joke. He talked about liking The Godfather and Goodfellas and Sopranos, then made a joke about somebody named Johnny Sacks. I'm sure that would be funny if I had seen every Sopranos episode, but I have not.
Well, thank you for bringing that up then. Then they were in the Abyss's therapy session. He was there with Dr. Stevie, and they only showed him from behind, but he had a ponytail, and it is, in fact, Stevie Richards. And how they're going to explain Stevie Richards running an actual practice, because they were in a real doctor's office.
Getting his doctorate, going to medical school,
and
getting his doctorate.
Becoming a competitor in a shitty wrestling organization. I have no idea.
That is a fascinating concept.
And I have no idea what Abyss was talking about. This segment sucked.
Nash was talking about mafia movies. Abyss began talking about Family Guy and then Lost, and basically it was two segments back-to-back telling you better shows you could watch than Impact.
I've never watched Lost in my life, but apparently the final episode, according to Abyss, they go back to the island. So it's just stealing storylines from Gilligan's Island, basically. Now, Beer Money and Rhino and Abyss for the tag titles was okay at the beginning, and then got really bad. Actually, what happened was the babyfaces ran wild for a while, and then they went to commercial, and the entire heat was during the break.
Yes.
How do you possibly get into a match like this? You can't. So they come back, and the babyfaces are running wild, and then Rhino was outside with the ref for about 10 minutes. Storm tried to use the beer bottle on Abyss, but Abyss thwarted him. And then Abyss was going to use the bottle, but then Morgan hit Abyss with a chair, and then Storm covered him. This match fell apart in an epic manner at the end, and Morgan gave him an extra chair shot for good measure. So yes, that feud must continue, even though Morgan was defeated decisively at the pay-per-view.
With the finisher, yes. I don't know. But this ending was so bad. Rhino seriously had the ref for like a minute and a half, just by himself, as they were arguing out there. As both the beer money got involved, the bottle got involved, and Morgan came in with the chair. It was like a parody of bad wrestling cliches. This is like a Saturday Night Live wrestling skit presented seriously. No buys.
Foley did Hardcore History 101, talking about his 1995 no-rope barbed wire match with Terry Funk, and he starts talking about how he and Terry got all fucked up, and his finger got all gashed open, and there was blood and stinking skin everywhere. And then he got on the bus, and there was Terry in the back, and he went up and they hugged, and he concluded, "We hugged like men." That was a good hardcore memory. Yeah. And to conclude, everyone, wrestling is fake.
That's what it came down to, yes.
And I cannot wait until he starts talking about all the great times he had in WWE. God, that's going to be great.
Me and Taker
every week we're going to have to hear about how awesome WWE was.
Taker didn't want to throw me off the cell, but I insisted.
I just said, what the hell? Give me a good chuck. Then we had Angle come out for the laying down Delia Bob, and he explained that Sting had broke the code, and he had to make an example out of him, and he told him to lay down. And then Sting did a big promo, which was actually really good, and basically said, listen, where's your integrity? What happened to men losing like men? He said, what would you have done in 1996 if Abbas Jajidi would have won? Would you have laid down for him? Would you ask him to lay down for you? Would you ask him for a do-over? And he said he retained the title of the pay-per-view, and he wanted to know where Kurt's honor was, his ability to look at Sting and say he was a better man. And he said nobody in TNA really respected Kurt. They might tell him that to his face, but they really didn't. And he said, fine, I'll lay down. Go ahead and steal your 13th title. And by the way, for those keeping track, Kurt is apparently adding up WWE, WCW, TNA,
Olympics,
NC2A, NCAA, and world titles, or something wacky, to come up with 13 world heavyweight championships. So, or 12, I guess it is. So, I'm going to say one thing right here that I've also never said about Impact. Normally we read these spoilers, and the spoilers sound awful. And then the show is, in fact, awful. Sometimes the show's a little better than it sounded on paper. This was an example where what I read in the spoilers was so much better than what they actually did. In the spoilers, Sting finally lies down, Angle goes to cover him, Sting kicks out, and they brawl. Here, Sting laid down after berating Kurt Angle for being a pussy. And instead of making the cover, Angle goes, "Fine, fuck you, let's fight." Why would the heel do that? Why would you book a heel to do that? To suddenly go,
to stand
I
up
will
to a
be
manly
man.
challenge, yes.
I will be a man. Why would you do that? These fucking people are so retarded. Please somebody tell me that they actually taped 2 and they used the stupider one.
I don't know.
Please tell me that.
I don't know.
So anyway, they brawled, the Mafia broke it up, and then Angle said it was time for war. This wasn't about a belt anymore, it was personal, so next week they're having an empty arena match. An empty arena match.
With Kurt Angle and Sting.
Yeah. So, there you go.
The best part was...
I will wait till next week to rant about how they set it up. I'll let you all watch it, and then I'll rant.
I see. I will just say the best part about it was Kurt issued this challenge, basically saying next week you and me will have the main event Mafia clear the Impact Zone, and it'll be an empty arena match. And then TNA declared it as fact. This was not cleared with Sting.
No.
This was not cleared with Jeff Jarrett.
No.
This was not cleared with anyone running the Impact Zone in Orlando.
No.
This was just fact.
Yeah. It's amazing. Amazing how that works. So
that show sucked.
This show was pretty damn horrible, and I don't know what else to say about it. And I will say, I didn't get the TNA Times this week. But
it seemed like there was a lot more wrestling.
There was a lot more wrestling
That's
here.
true.
There was a lot more wrestling here, so I have to give him credit for that. But I mean, as a show, it still, pretty much sucked a cock. To the back! The DVR decided not to record Impact, by the grace of God. So we missed some of it, like a half hour.
Not enough.
Fortunately, we saw the rest. It opened up, with what we saw at least, with a skit with the Governor, Taylor, and Roxy. Now, apparently, I don't know for sure, but the Governor, I think, is supposed to be the real Sarah Palin, because she keeps talking about going back to Alaska.
I think, and again, we came in the middle here, but I think what she was saying was, she's not really Sarah Palin, but she's going to keep pretending to be just to annoy the beautiful people. I believe that's what she was implying here.
We don't know, though. All I know is Roxy and Taylor were cutting what was supposed to be a babyface promo, and they came across as the biggest bitches you've ever seen on TV. Plus, they were bragging about how cute Kip could not touch them, and therefore, when they all faced off, it was going to be 3-on-2. Fucking amazing.
Yes, this is the babyface promo. And they also were sure to mention that Kip was not allowed to hit them specifically because Spike TV would not allow man-on-woman violence. And this point was rammed home throughout the show 700 times. So someone's upset they can't let boys hit girls.
Who could that possibly
I don't know. Roxy was standing there.
Maybe that's what Russo blames the low buy rates on.
If only we could show men beating up chicks, we'd get thousands of buys.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, who knows? But Roxy was standing there. She has stolen Brigitte Nielsen's hair from about 1991, and she had 2 words. One of them was a curse word, and the next one was, yeah. That was the whole promo. Unbelievable. This was so ungodly watchable, and the next segment may have been worse.
Shit with Stevie and Abyss. It sucked. All I wrote was, fuck this show in all caps. I was 2 minutes in, by the way, to watching the show.
We were 2 segments in.
Yeah.
All I know is, for some reason, they're playing the most annoying jazz elevator music you ever heard in your life throughout the segment, and it was significantly worse than the scary, sad music they played for the Hardys promos on SmackDown.
Brutus Magnus, The Sheik, and Matt Morgan against LAX and referee Shaky, who they are now calling the referee/wrestler. That's what they're calling him. Now, wouldn't this kind of like be a conflict of interest?
Oh, I would think so.
That's what I was thinking. And then in the middle of this match, he ends up outside, and the Sheik grabbed a chair and was going to wallop him with it. But who should pull Shaky to safety?
Well, his partners were LAX, so it must have been Homicide.
Wrong!
Hernandez?
Earl Hebner.
What?
Yes! Earl Hebner pulled the referee out of the way. Or the wrestler.
Or the ref.
Or the ref, whatever the fuck it is. So Hernandez finally got the hot tag.
Wait, hold on. So the referee saved Shane Sewell from this illegal attack. Did he then disqualify the Sheik for using a weapon?
Of course not.
The match just continued.
Yes.
Wanted to make sure.
So then the Sheik ended up getting hit with a border toss, and then Shaky did the flying elbow and got the pin. And the match, if you ignore all the idiocy, was actually a pretty decent little match. So way to go, Impact.
At the very end, after everything was done, Homicide tosses Shane the Puerto Rican flag, and he kisses it, and Don West spits out as fast as he can before they cut away. Shane still used to wrestle in Puerto Rico, so he made his name there.
Yep.
And they went away.
Yeah,
Thanks for getting us that at the end of the segment.
Foley's hardcore history focused on him coming out of a box and dropping an elbow on Sting, and that was literally the extent of his explanation of anything he was talking about.
He did not say where this was. He did not say when. He did not say why. He came out of a box and dropped an elbow on Sting, and that was a big moment in history. Now, I'm a wrestling nerd. I know he's talking about his match with Sting in, like, 92 or something, but no one else does. The very, very small minority does.
This was amazing.
And based on what we saw of their fans later, no one in that building did.
Oh, we'll talk about the fans later. Oh, yes, we will. So then, now how many shitty segments in a row has this been?
Well, are you counting the match?
We'll count the match as one good segment.
All right, then
but
three shitty segments out of 4.
Now we're done 4. We've got Steiner doing curls backstage. This segment was incredible. Steiner is doing curls, and he's ranting and raving to the blonde.
Minor point, he was doing... I'm sorry, when he started, he was doing curls. You're right.
Yes.
I
have no idea what he was talking about. I have no earthly idea. I know it involved the Main Event Mafia.
I couldn't even understand the actual words he was saying, not alone his concepts or theories. I couldn't understand his language.
So then he told the blonde to take her clothes off and get on the bench and work out with him. She was not interested. So he decided to do bench press himself. Now, for those of you that have never seen Scott Steiner, which I'd presume are none of you, he's an enormous man.
Right.
He's the biggest wrestler in any organization in the United States today.
Quite possibly.
Quite possibly. Who's bigger?
Mark Henry.
As far as big and ripped, nobody.
Scott Steiner, yeah.
Nobody is as big and ripped in any organization in the U.S. as Scott Steiner. He's fucking enormous. So he starts bench pressing 115 pounds.
Whee!
115 pounds.
Maybe he was doing sets of infinity.
I warm up with 135.
Yes.
And I'm not a bencher. 115. So he's benching 115 pounds. And Scott fucking Steiner, as he's bench pressing 115 pounds, a man comes up and puts his hand on the middle of the bar and pushes the bar down into Scott's chest. Scott, with 115 pounds on the bar and one arm pushing down on him, cannot free himself. He begins gasping and choking for air. The man who is pressing this 115 pounds down onto the chest of Scott Steiner says he is Samoa Joe and he will kill him at the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Then he left.
I thought you might add something.
I was going to wait for you to finish. Usually you finish the entire thing first.
I was finished.
Well, actually, you're
I
not.
ran out of steam.
You may have run out of steam, but you're not finished, because after this happened, Joe said he was going to kill Scott. Then he left. Scott Steiner was still stuck.
I missed that.
He was still trapped under 115 pounds. He could not raise this off his head, or off his chest. This was a useless segment. It was an insulting segment. It was ridiculous. It had no positive qualities at all whatsoever.
That may have been the longest silence ever in the history of this show.
I doubt it.
No. That set new standards right there. Then the blonde interviewed Sojo. Yes, another segment about her title shot against Awesome Kong. She said she didn't care what the Controd shot. She won her title shot and she was taking it. And then Raishis walked up and they had an argument about whether Sojo could take it. All of Contourage was in that battle royal to win a shot at Kong.
Raisha herself was competing for a shot at this #1 contendership. This makes no sense.
Completely lame. Angelina Love and Taylor Wilde. The highlight of this was Velvet Sky.
That's for damn sure.
That's the only highlight, really. I guess the wrestling was all right early. And they kicked Cute Kip out because he interfered, which is more than I can say for what they did on ECW.
Well, they were sure to point out, Brian, it's not so much that he interfered, it's that it's Spike's ban on man-on-woman violence.
Oh.
It's all Spike's fault. This is where they really hammered it home, and God, it's pathetic. Men should not be ejected. Men should be ejected for beating up women, not because Spike TV has banned it, but because it is common human decency.
No, apparently not.
Guess not.
So, the match was all right, and then the ref got distracted by Velvet, which is at least understandable. And then Angelina had a pin, but there was no ref. Yes, the heel had a pin, but there was no ref. And then the governor tripped her up, and Taylor got the pin. The babyfaces, using a gigantic disadvantage, beat the heel and came off as complete bitches once again.
And I realized Sarah Palin not too long ago was nearly the vice president, but now she's just the governor of Alaska again. And sure, maybe she'll win again someday, but for right now, for the vast majority of the U.S., those of us who do not live in Alaska, she's a non-issue. This is already a dated reference. How about a Geraldine Ferraro character? Why not?
They hyped up One Night with ODB, and they hyped it up with video of various animals fucking.
Correct.
I swear to God.
That is the literal comparison they drew.
I swear to God they had video of animals fucking.
Turtles, for example.
Yes.
This was supposed to entice us to send in a video. To compete with, by the way, some men who had already sent in some videos.
Yes.
I think I rather like the turtles better.
These loser fans, they found the worst examples of fans to air on their television. They took the lowest common denominator, found people even lower, and used these videos on their television show. And you wonder why nobody buys ads on wrestling shows.
I don't.
You fucking wonder why.
And, by the way, this was not the worst point for the fans on this show.
No. It would get worse.
Significantly worse.
So, then Borash interviewed Sting about the empty arena match later, and boy, can I not wait to hate on the beginning of this show when they talk about why they're doing this match. But I want to see it first. So, he said he was going to do all he could to retain the title because anyone else as champion would tarnish its legacy. Way to put over everybody else in the fucking company.
Indeed.
Then he said Kurt could get rid of all the people he wanted, but tonight he had to promise to leave the cameras rolling because he was at his best when it was showtime.
His intensity with delivery was very good.
Sting's promos are always good.
Yeah.
Not good enough to make people want to buy pay-per-views, but good in the sense that they're not bad. Got a rough cut putting over Ultimate X, which again, good stuff.
Devon Dudley said in this promo, and I am not making this up, this is a direct quote, "It's all about the guy who can do the most flips."
Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
We had Beer Money against Petey and Eric Young in a title versus career match, where if Young or Petey lost, then the loser of the fall had to leave the company. And they came out to the Team Canada music, like I needed to hear that ever again. So they ran wild early. It was great. Heels went to work, got a big comeback. Fans were into it. Ended up with the ref outside trying to stop Rude and Young from fighting. And meanwhile, in the ring, Jackie tried a big splash on Petey and missed. Petey then decided he was going to hit her with his move. He had to get all his shit in. This resulted in Rude tripping him, and then Storm superkicked him for the pin. So in storyline,
man on woman violence.
In storyline, Petey deserved to lose his job for being so goddamn stupid in such an important match. Now, with that said, when the match was over, he was very sad. He actually cried. He legitimately cried to have been fired from TNA, and I think because he cried, all the fans actually believed he was really leaving. And I think it takes tears now, because so many people have quit and been fired and come right back. But the people believed that he left. They gave him a decent amount of time for his farewell, and I thought, how weird is it that I am putting over TNA for the amount of time they gave a guy in his last match, when the reason it's his last match was because they fucking fired him?
Yeah.
What praise?
It was, I don't know. It was like they did this big emotional goodbye, and it was an emotional goodbye because, as you noted, they turfed him for not really a good reason.
No.
To cut costs, why don't you cut one of the guys making 5 times his salary?
Why don't you cut Jackie, who probably was not making all that much more than Petey,
why
or
don't you
less.
cut Jackie? Well, yes, they apparently drew a name out of a hat from the lower paid men and said, Petey, you're gone. Sorry. And they were doing everything they could throughout this match to put over everything he had done for the company in their time, how hard he had worked, what a big part of the history that he was, and now he is fired. Why? Don't know. So he's weeping. The fans are chanting his name. Eric's got his hand over his shoulder. It's a big, big deal. And I'm thinking, well, at least they gave him a good amount of time here. They didn't cut right to the back. And they did not cut right to the back, but they had to go to the back. To the back.
Then they interviewed Team 3D and Rhino about the empty arena match. And Rhino, he was here trying to put over how dangerous it was. There were no referees, security, police officers. A person could tear a bicep, a tricep. They could be maimed. They could be killed.
They could be killed, he said. There would be no one there to stop it.
And as he's trying to put this over, Bubba says, I once tore an ab doing crunches. Why would you waste time on television?
I don't know.
Giving a guy a promo, trying to put over how dangerous a match is.
I don't know.
When the other guy in the same fucking segment is turning into a giant joke.
I don't know.
So then they eventually, long story short, Bubba said, who gives a shit about either of these guys? Let them kill each other. Let's go to the strip club. And so Rhino said, okay.
The exact sentence was, let's go to the strip club and forget all this stupidity, which I'm going to repeat to you every Thursday night for the rest of my life.
So there you go. Then they had Lauren outside with the fans. And I don't know how to say this without saying what I'm going to say, but this explained everything. This explained everything.
It did.
This explained why there are why the Impact Zone is packed every week. This explained the people that watch this show in and out every week. I don't like to judge people, but I'm going to. I watch this show every week, and it drives me out of my fucking mind because nothing makes any sense, and there are massive logic holes as far as the eye can see. I hate this, and if this were not my job, I would never watch this television program again as long as I lived. These fans, God bless them, looked like, well, it looked like they didn't notice a single logic hole in any show that TNA has ever put together. You could have sold these fans anything. You could do anything you wanted, and these fans would not know any better. Now, maybe they just got a bad batch of fans. Maybe they sent the cameras around and said, find the lowest common denominator here and film them for TV. Which in that case, the question is, why would you do that? Why would you put those people on TV? So, quite the cross-section of Americana here.
There was a guy who was missing more teeth than Granny and the Boogeyman put together. And he was jumping up and down with his mouth wide open, screaming, having a good old time. He could not have dressed himself. It's impossible. And I'm looking at the rest of this crew, and there was a man with a T-shirt that read, if idiots could fly, this place would be a fucking airport. And I thought, the ironic thing, sir, is that you thought that shirt was so funny, you paid money for it. You chose to buy that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Astounding. I cannot grasp these people actually exist in 2009.
And you wonder why nobody pays any money.
And then my next thing I wrote down was every advertiser just canceled.
Yes.
Because these people clearly have a combined $0 of disposable income. This is the dregs of humanity.
This was just incredible.
This is the people who wake up and every day there is no prison in their life. They count it as a good one. It's a success.
It just amazes me. How many times have we watched the UFC and they find just like the fucking hottest girls they can and put them on TV?
The hottest girls they can,
or a celebrity,
or even if it's the douchebags, it's the douchebags who got dressed up.
Yeah,
not TNA.
They found. I don't know what they found.
They found the people who are on their way to their work as dirt farmers.
This was just amazing.
They found.
I don't know. I just don't know.
I regret living in the world with these people.
I just don't know.
I often said that joking about TNA fans and whoever buys their pay-per-views, because clearly they're not only in Orlando. These must be the 20-some thousand scattered around the country who buy these shows.
Now, I'm sure there's some people listening right now that are huge TNA fans that are offended.
I don't care.
Well, I'll say this. If you're not one of those people, great. But they still chose to show all those people. This was what they told me and Vinny and the other 1.6 million people. This is who they said their fans were. These were the people they chose to represent the fan base of TNA. So don't fucking get mad at me. Don't fucking get mad at me. You can get mad at TNA for creating this impression of who their fans are by showing these people on television.
Yeah, thumbs down.
Then we had
Thumbs down
Angle,
to the fans of TNA.
Angle and Sting in the empty arena match. My God. This was every stupid fucking thing you could possibly come up with in
What
one
were we just
match.
saying about logic holes and people not paying attention and not being aware that things don't make sense?
They sent all these fucking fans out of the building so that they could empty out the arena. They said there were no referees, no security, blah, blah, blah. Nobody was in the building, they said. Well, Don and Mike were in the building. Someone had to call the matches. God knows they couldn't do that from outside. And then they announced that the Main Event Mafia is right outside the tube, or the hole, or whatever it's called. Right outside the, what the fuck do they call that
Tunnel.
thing? The tunnel. They're in the building.
They're not only in the building, they're nearby. They're conveniently positioned to run in and interfere in this empty arena match.
And I wonder about those fans, and I wonder, am I right that not a single one of those fans knew they were running in? I mean, seriously. They're at the fucking tunnel. They're at the run-in area in an empty arena match.
They may as well run a map showing 6-sided ring, tunnel, MEM.
Speaking of, they started fighting in the ring. Why?
Well,
They cleared out the entire fucking building, and you guys decided to start in the ring? Why?
even before that, for this empty arena match with no fans watching, they still had full entrances, including music, lights, and pyro.
Well, there were fans watching, just outside.
I see.
So, yeah, but they did have entrances, which was ridiculous. So, they fought all over the place. Angle fell off a balcony. God knows why he chose to do this. They kept beating on each other. It was very intense. Lack of fans killed it, of course, because they got rid of all the fans, because they're so stupid. So, Sting finally got a chair and was going to hit Angle, and Angle started pleading for his life. Swore to God he was sorry. Said he had children. Blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, Nash saunters up. Empty arena match. Nash saunters up and cuts a promo about how we agreed that as long as we were family, nothing would come in between us. Angle was like, fuck you, I hate his guts. Nash said, I demand you make this right, Kurt. So Sting offered his hand and said, we promised that after the pay-per-view everything would be great. So Angle finally reluctantly shook his hand and then spit on him. At which point, a brawl erupted. And who should break up this brawl between Angle and Sting in the empty arena match?
Well, Kevin Nash was there.
No.
Scott Steiner, I saw him too.
No.
Well, then who else?
Security.
What?
Yeah. Security ran in the middle of the empty fucking arena match and broke it up.
Right. After they spent the entire hour and a half that we saw, maybe they didn't talk about it the first half hour, but the entire hour and a half we saw, they were plugging this hardcore. Historic, they said. A historic event. The empty arena match between Kurt Angle and Sting. They expressed this as if it was the most important. What happened to your hair just now?
I started yanking at it.
Brian has been to pull his hair from his head and has only marginally succeeded. As I was saying, they tried to, for an hour and a half to convince us this was the most important match in the history of the Earth, this empty arena fight, which ended when Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner and security ran in. They started brawling again. Security tried to break them up. They went to commercial. When they came back from commercial, I expected we would see, they were still fighting. I thought we would see a conclusion to this encounter. No. Sting cut a promo, Angle cut a promo, and then the show ended. Let this be known. Let this be announced on what's today, February 18th? Something like that?
Yes.
February 18th, 2009. For the first time in history, in total non-stop action wrestling, there was an empty arena match that ended in a no contest.
Yeah.
There was no winner.
Yeah. Way to go, Vince Russo.
Ungodly. He broke the laws of physics. He broke the laws of the English language.
Someday I'm going to write the most scathing book that has ever been written about another human being. I will. I will do this someday. So, basically, Sting said he wanted Kurt. Kurt begged Jarrett to sign a match between him and Sting. Show ended.
I will say this. Sting's promo was awesome. He had great intensity. He was screaming for Kurt's name. Then he walked off camera and screamed, "Rah!" And it was about as funny as I just did, actually.
It was exactly like Lex Luger when he couldn't get the fucking door open.
It was the same thing. Then they showed Kurt Angle in the locker room. He was screaming, "Where's Jarrett?" And I just thought, well, apparently not in the fucking building. Empty arena match. So, this was terrible.
This was a horrible show.
The only thing I have
Mr. Luger, I saw what just happened out there with Ron Killens. I just want to ask you, I mean, what are your plans for the next show, Super Brawl Saturday? I mean, are you going to take care of Ron Killens?
What kind of disgusting, despicable lack of respect is that Billy What's-His-Name show booking a match for the total package like Luger and Super Brawl? Super Saturday? What is it? I don't know what it's called. What is it called?
Super Brawl Saturday.
Super Brawl Saturday? Can he afford to pay me to wrestle Ron? I don't know. I'm one of the biggest legends and stars ever in this. God! And your team's look like too tight too, Billy! And you book a match with me against Ron Killens? Look at me! I'm a total package. I will rip him apart. I'm pissed now.
I don't think
That's the best part. Doors locked, too.
It's best because it's preceded by the... You hear him trying to pull the door open, and it won't go.
Everything is better than Impact.
Everything is better than Impact. I do want to mention real quick, in the beer money match, besides the great emotional finish, the match itself was actually really, really fun, too. So that saves us from being the worst Impact ever. And for the second week in a row, we saw a Rock and Roll Express spot in a beer money match. So way to go, you guys.
To the back!
Me and the Von Erichs, there's 8 of them in the ring. I had the claw on all 7 of them. Wow.
Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! To the back! To the back!
You are good!
To the back!
The more you watch TNA, and the shittier it got.
The what?
The shittier it got.
To the back!
A disturbing mechanical tone. Hal looks down on TNA.
All right. So the show opened with Tenay and West in an empty Impact Zone, putting over last week's show, talking about how 2 million people had watched the Angle Sting match. They explained they were there 2 hours before the show so that they could recap what happened. Why couldn't they do this when the show started? Why did they have to do this 2 hours before the show? Because an empty arena equaled ratings last week. So they started with it again.
Mm-hmm.
I have an idea, actually. They emptied out the arena and did 2 million viewers. So I think they should just take the entire show off the air, and they may do 3 million.
I'd be in favor of this.
I think this is worth a try.
Just run a test pattern.
Yeah. We have the Beautiful People against Taylor Wilde and Madison Rayne. I have a theory about this, by the way. Madison Rayne is billed from being from Seattle, Washington. Now, we're in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
We hate this show.
Right.
We bury the show every week.
Mm-hmm.
If I were a wrestling company and there were people like me and you burying the show every week as a rib, I would find the ugliest fucking wrestler on the roster and bill her as being from Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
But because it's TNA and everything has to be a swerve, they used a hot girl.
Uh-huh.
I believe this. Madison Rayne is a rib on me.
But they fucked it up.
Sure, of course, because they're idiots.
There's many, many worse theories I've heard.
So she came out, and they got the heat on her for a long time, and then the other girl, Taylor, tagged in, and she was running wild, and it was really great, and then all of a sudden she just stopped. She just stopped making her comeback. I don't know if someone missed a spot. I have no idea what happened. She just stopped making a comeback. Then Madison hit the ring and slapped her across the face. I have no idea why. Apparently earlier in the match he tried to make a tag and Taylor wasn't there because she was outside. But anyway, the point is, this was their first match as a team, and
yes.
they already broke up.
Right. This was their whole regime as a team, their whole legacy as a team was when they walked to the ring together. The seeds of decision were sown in the first minute when Don West was talking about Taylor wanting to mentor Madison and saying, one thing we know about women, there's going to be jealousy involved.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then, yes, the turning point was that one brief instant when Madison went to make her first ever tag to Taylor, and Taylor was not there, and then they broke up 2 minutes later.
And Tenay said, and I quote, that she had been, and I quote, biatch slapped. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Those were his exact words.
Biatch slapped. Yes. So, this is horrible.
Well, the wrestling wasn't too bad. But
until the end when they stopped and all looked at each other for a minute.
Well, there was that, but come on now. There's
before that, it was
far worse later.
Before that, it was fine. I will, in the praise of TNA, the beautiful people were off the charts tonight.
The ass cam is buys.
Yes, the fishnet stockings were great. They get a giant thumbs up.
The Mafia arrived, and Borash wanted to know if Angle and Sting was happening at the pay-per-view, and Angle said they'd make a statement at the top of the hour, and then cops showed up, to which Steiner immediately replied, she was 19! I laughed. That was funny. Then it got very not funny. They said, we're looking for Mr. Huffman, which of course is Booker T's real last name, and everyone in the Mafia began to laugh and make fun of him for being Huffman. Ha ha ha! They said, Huffman! I swear to you this happened. So, that was the entire segment.
Actually, it's worse than that. That was 2 segments. They arrived, we got a commercial, then they did the bit with the cops after commercial. That needed to be done twice.
Yeah. Beer Money against the Rock and Rave Infection. It was one thing the first week when they had a competitive match with Petey Williams. Now it has been 2 weeks, and only in TNA, with the guys leaving the territory, not only go toe-to-toe with the world champions, but get a visual pinfall on them when the ref is distracted. What?
Can you imagine if they put this much work into trying to get guys who are staying over?
Lance Hoyt is leaving.
Yeah.
He has legitimately been fired.
He's been turfed.
He could show up on WWE Raw Monday.
Doubtful, but sure.
So in his final match, he ran wild on the tag team champions and had a visual pinfall on them.
He hit what I assume is his finisher on, I believe, Robert Roode, and yes, laid on top of him for the clear 1-2-3, but the ref was distracted.
These people have no idea what they're doing. Have I ever mentioned that?
It's like they feel bad for firing the guy, so they pat him on the shoulder and said, to make this up to you, we'll let you get a visual pin on our tag champs. And if I'm Lance Hoyt and they say that to me, I say, fuck you! Doesn't make me feel better. You're taking my goddamn job.
It's amazingly idiotic. Then we had Sting arriving, and Borash wanted to know what was going on, and Sting ignored him. And then, as they were cutting away to commercial, they suddenly zoomed in on a man in the background, but they zoomed in so fast it was blurry, and they immediately cut away.
You spent probably 4 times as much time talking about it as it actually took to happen.
I rewound it to see what I missed, and I still don't know.
I thought it was an accident. I thought a guy had just accidentally walked into this skit way in the background and went to go walk back. And then I realized, no, they zoomed in on him. That was supposed to happen, so I don't know.
Booker was talking to the cops backstage, and he showed them the locker room that AJ had trashed. It took a week for the cops to show up, by the way.
It looks like at least 2 weeks, didn't it?
No, last week. It was
last week? All right. It will take a week for the cops to show up.
So he told them this man, AJ, was armed and dangerous, had stolen his ruby and jewel-encrusted title, and something had to be done. They said they'd work on it.
Yeah. It was, again, a very, very short segment. And also, we learned that Booker T had put up his own police tape. Yeah. Caution, police work, do not cross. They went to the announce desk as Mike Tenay ran down the card or the main event or something, and he turns to Don and says, Don, why don't you tell the folks about the upcoming house shows? Or what do they call this? And Don says, I can do that. And he reaches over to his right, and he pulls out a sheet of paper, and then begins to read dates.
Yeah.
Rinky dink!
Yeah. This shocks you in what way?
They find a new way to suck every week. Every segment, it turns out.
Abyss was in therapy with Dr. Stevie. They are now playing wacky music in the background. I'm still waiting for them to just bust out carnival tunes. They may as well.
There's no reason not to. Abyss did all the talking in this segment. He made jokes about cutting himself, which is, boy, that's comedy gold right there. Then he made jokes about liking the Jonas Brothers.
And he wants to be a teen idol.
And we're supposed to cheer for this guy. Why?
Because he's funny.
Because he's a cutter who likes the Jonas Brothers and wants to be a pop idol.
Yeah.
And he's very concerned about his mask, he said.
Yeah.
Oh, and Stevie Richards was there.
More One Night with ODB bullshit. We talked about the fans last week.
I will say, I do like the guy who was curling a cinder block.
Well, that's probably going to be the worker.
It probably is the worker, but still, that's still a good idea.
So, then we went back to the cops, and Booker was telling them that they needed to put AJ Styles in jail. I swear to God, this is what happened. Booker, in his wacky accent, says, "You guys need to put AJ Styles in jail." The cops replied, and I quote, "Okay." They then proceeded to run to their police car, turn the lights on, and zoom away. Carl Stern, are you listening?
Apparently you've been doing police work wrong.
So the cops zoom off to put AJ in jail, and as soon as they leave, AJ shows up and assaults Booker T. 2 fat security guards run in to break it up, but then they apparently hold AJ so Booker could hit him. And as I'm trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, cut away. Horrendous program.
There was in their defense, the cops got a call on their walkie-talkie or something, and they were speaking to someone else, and they left to go do real police work. But
no,
you were watching this and you missed it because they did such a shitty job of explaining that.
AJ said he needs to be put in jail, and they said, okay.
They may have said that, too.
I saw this with my 2 eyes.
That happened, too.
Then, Lauren is interviewing Scott Steiner. Now, last week, I gotta blow my nose.
Get this bile out of your system.
I do. Hold on, everybody.
Right.
Hold on a minute. A great deal of TNA just came out of my nostrils right there. So, Scott Steiner's backstage, and if you listen to the Dave show, Dave and I talked about this a couple days ago, the absolute fucking stupidity of that angle last week or the week before, where Scott Steiner's benching 115 pounds, and Joe shows up to push the weights down on his chest. That's at least moderately believable. Scott's benching, and a guy just pushes the weight down. You know, whatever.
Joe's fat.
Joe fucking shows up behind Scott Steiner with, like, a sword. Or some sort of
dagger implements?
A machete, or something you would cut open a shark with.
He had a large blade.
A large serrated blade.
With a hook on the end, yes.
Yes. He put this up to Scott Steiner's neck. He threatened to cut his head off. I am not kidding.
Oh.
People have to think that we're making this stuff up.
No, this actually happened on the show.
Samoa Joe showed up with a fucking serrated blade and held it up to Scott Steiner's neck and threatened to cut his fucking head off on impact. Where the fuck are the cops? The funny thing is,
putting AJ
the
in jail.
fucking heels are right.
Yeah.
They need the cops to protect them from these idiot, insane baby faces. So Joe threatens to cut his head off, and they immediately cut away.
Well, he left. He left Scott Steiner whimpering, and Scott looked around. I think he said, holy shit, or something.
By the way, we've seen Joe on the screen. We've seen Joe's arm. This was the first time we saw Samoa Joe live, his whole body on Impact.
Yeah.
It was in this segment.
This is his return.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yes, so we had just seen an attempted murder or a threatened murder or something. And they went to the front, and there's Mike and Don, and they just said, well, that's interesting. Here's a video of Kurt Angle and Sting.
Yeah.
Completely unconcerned.
Yeah. Gets better.
About this mad Samoan with a knife.
Morash interviewed Jarrett, and he said he knew from day one that eventually the Mafia was going to break up. That was going to happen tonight. The fun would begin. That's what he said. I knew since day one that they were going to break up. That's going to happen tonight, and then the fun begins. Because you see, unless the main event Mafia implodes and turns on each other, the babyfaces have no hope.
Right. This is how he gets his revenge. By waiting.
By them failing.
Yes.
Then...
Back to business, he said.
Foley's Hardcore History 101. Now, when I first heard about this, what did I fucking say? I said, great. Every week we're going to hear about how great WWE is. And, of course, the first week he didn't talk about that. He talked about some match in Japan with Terry Funk where they told us that wrestling was fake. It's now
3 weeks.
For over 2 minutes, Mick Foley explained that his favorite match was against Shawn Michaels at In Your House in 1996.
In WWE.
Then, come WrestleMania 20, he teamed up with The Rock. I was okay, he said. The match was good. It was good enough. But good enough was not good enough for Mick Foley. So we got a second chance to make a last impression. A hardcore match with Randy Orton in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Randy Orton had so much potential. And he went out there, and he had the best hardcore match he could possibly have. And that match with Randy Orton was his favorite hardcore memory. For 2 fucking minutes, he talked about how awesome it was in WWE, and how he had so many great matches there.
It's actually worse than that. For 2 minutes, well, for the last minute, he talked about how awesome the WWE's top heel is.
Yeah. And how he's no good anymore.
Yeah. He talked about how awesome Randy Orton, the guy going into the main event of WrestleMania, is. That was the point of this program, was to hype the WrestleMania main event. That was what this segment was for. And sometimes, here's my notes. This is a stream of consciousness note-taking. I'm just going to read it as is. Hardcore 101. Favorite match, Shawn. Then, with Rock against Evolution. Then, Orton. And in all caps, Randy Orton. He is talking about making Randy Orton a star.
Yeah.
Those were my notes.
It gets better. The Mafia came out. And by the Mafia, I mean the entire Mafia. We had Scott Steiner, who 5 minutes ago had been threatened with a serrated blade by Samoa Joe, who's going to cut his head off. He nonchalantly walks down to the ring. I mean, unconfucking-cerned. Nonchalantly walks down to the ring. We've got Booker T, who 10 minutes ago had his ass handed to him in the parking lot. Nonchalantly walking down to the ring. Where's AJ Styles, by the way? What happened in the parking lot?
We don't know. We don't know.
And taking up the caboose, Sting, who last week got in such a brawl with TNA that they had to bring security into an open arena match, or an empty arena match. They had to be sequestered into separate locker rooms. They threatened to kill each other. Now they walked out of the ring together as a unit.
And they were apparently hanging out backstage in the tunnel just chatting.
Yeah. So TNA wanted to know about this match, and Jarrett came out, and long story short... Oh, no, I actually got it. I was going to say long story short, but I need to do the long story. TNA is talking about how Angle asked for this match because Nash says we don't want to do this match. TNA's like, Angle asked for it. And Nash says, no. Jeff Jarrett worked both of you last week. Worked. What? Who? Worked? What does this mean? Apparently we're all supposed to know. Everybody's an internet fan in the TNA audience, apparently. So they start talking about
stop right there. We saw them last week. These people cannot possibly know how to operate computers.
Well, they do. Boys in the back, front office, all these stupid-ass catch terms. So finally, Jarrett comes out, and he signs the match, and he says, later on tonight, we're going to have the contract signing. Tonight, mind you. Not next week, tonight. And then Booker starts ranting and raving, and oh yeah, Booker's thing.
This is key, actually.
Yeah. He says... Booker gets in Jarrett's face and says, you call yourself the founder. What did you ever found? Which is a great line, by the way. What did you ever found? He says, a company full of nobodies? A company full of wannabes? He said the company started out as a flea market. Jarrett painted the building himself, and without the main event mafia, there would be no damn TNA. Jarrett threatened to kick his ass.
Not before admitting that, yeah, he did paint the asylum himself.
He did paint it himself, yes.
I see him like with Tom Sawyer whitewashing it.
Then Don West turned heel on Mike Tenay.
What?
Yes. Out of the blue. Keep in mind they've been working as a team for a full hour.
Without incident.
No.
Without the sideways glance, without a hesitation, without a muttering. For 1 hour into the show, it was Don and Mike, as we have seen them for 7 years now.
So, he starts yelling at TNA for being an ass kisser. And he grabs the mic and explains to the fans that earlier this week, TNA management had called a meeting to discuss Don's career at the announce booth. They called a meeting to discuss Don's career at the announce booth. Mike TNA, his friend of 7 years, did not speak up on behalf of Don West. He did not defend his friend. Don was so appalled by this that he said TNA was a selfish prick. He could have done the right thing, but he didn't have the balls, at which point the fans began chanting, "No balls." Yes, they turned on Mike TNA. He said he knew two things. Number one, their friendship would never be the same. And number two, that TNA could take the microphone and shove it up his ass. And he walked away. Because you see, Don West was so angry that Mike TNA did not work to save his job that he walked off his job.
I don't get it. I don't understand.
I watched this twice.
All the way through. All the way through we did.
Don's promo was pretty good.
Don's delivery
was great.
Mike's was not.
This angle is so
The angle's stupid. I don't know. I don't know where it's going. Are Mike TNA and Don West going to wrestle?
I can't wait to talk to Dave about this one.
He'll bet on that.
You know what he wrote in The Observer? He wrote, "They better have a great idea."
And when was the last time that happened?
Well, I was just going to say the last time he wrote this was for the Sarah Palin skit. They did not have a great idea.
That's true.
I have no faith in them having a great idea here. They do not have a great idea. History has shown the idea they have is not great.
No. Don West, his performance and his delivery here were pretty good. Mike TNA was completely and utterly unbelievable. And that's just because he's Mike TNA. He's like that all the time. He cannot help but act that way. So here's Don talking about how there was a meeting and his job was at stake, and his supposed friend who had been to his house several times he said, had done nothing
in 7 years.
Had done nothing to protect his career. And Mike TNA replies, and I quote, "Don, what's this all about?" And that's his tone.
Yeah.
That's how he talks. He talks like a phony person.
So, then we had Mike TNA alone at the announcer's table after commercial. Oh, no, first we had the Concharage.
This is important.
The Concharage were screaming at each other backstage, and 5 seconds went by and they cut away.
This
entire segment,
in all seriousness, had to be the shortest segment in wrestling history. The Concharage screaming at each other. That was all it was.
Yeah. Mike TNA was alone at the table, and he said that Keith and the truck had just alerted him that they were going to replay what Don had just said. Yes! The crew has turned on Mike TNA.
Okay, that was awesome. So we watched the whole thing again.
Yeah. So then Raka Khan and Sojourner Bolt came out and cut a promo on the Concharage. Yes, Raka spoke. More so, she rapped, I believe.
It was rap or poetry.
A poem.
I'm not sure.
There was rhyming involved.
Yes. So, to review, first of all, apparently that 5-second angle where they all screamed at each other, apparently that was Raka and Sojo's face turn. Horrible!
Was it? I don't know.
I don't know.
All I know is I believe how long have they been using the term Concharage? A month?
No more than 2.
They've been together a month. They are already breaking up. And why? Why? Because there was a battle royal to determine who was going to become the number one contender. And for some reason, every member of the Concharage got involved. What did they think going in? That they'd all lose? What did they think?
I don't know.
This angle fucking is... Ugh.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because there was something else in the opener that was said on commentary that I think is important. Don West noted and pointed out, you have to admire the beautiful people because they are loyal to each other.
Yeah.
They're heels! And they are the only loyal unit in the company.
Well, beer money, I guess.
I suppose the machine guns are loyal to one another, but everyone else in this company hates their friends except the beautiful people.
So, they had this tag match. Awesome Kong and Raisha Saeed against Raka Khan and Sojo Bolt. I think this was the worst match in TNA history. I'm not entirely sure, but if not, it was in the top 5.
It was very horrible.
This match was so bad. You've got Awesome Kong and Raisha Saeed on one side. They can carry the two lesser workers. You would think. Oh, no.
No.
Oh, no. Raka Khan was so bad. Like, a degree of bad, the likes of which I have never seen before, I don't think. I went to Buddy's school yesterday with guys that have been training for a matter of weeks, I think, in some cases. Every single one of them was better than Raka Khan. She has to be the worst wrestler on the earth.
That's fair.
She makes fucking Kozlov look like Brock Lesnar.
Alex Kozlov.
In his prime. Yes, Alex Kozlov. They could not do anything.
No.
So, she
she was having this horrible match. And they were showing it all. As she screwed up Irish whips and ruined many a spot. And all of that made TV. Then we saw Awesome Kong give her a body slam.
Yes.
We saw Awesome Kong go over to tag in Raisha. We saw a close-up of Kong's face. The next thing you know, hot tag!
Yeah.
Sojo got the hot tag.
Something happened that was so horrendous. And keep in mind they aired everything else.
Yeah.
Something that occurred at a level so far below what they had achieved that they had to edit it off of the program. I cannot even imagine what this could have been.
I have a theory. She is so horrible that she took this body slam, and the minute Kong turned her back, she leapt to her feet and made the hot tag. And I say that because when they got the tag, when they got the close-up of Awesome Kong's face as she was exiting the ring, she made the tag and she starts to exit. She's looking at Raisha, and Raisha's saying something to her, and you saw a great look of surprise on Kong's face.
As if she said...
As if Raisha's saying, what is that fucking girl doing?
She just tagged.
And Kong said, what?
So, yeah, they
regardless
broke down into a four-way, and this was where it completely fell apart. I mean, pre-first day of wrestling school bad. A complete Titanic disaster, and Kong Sojo pinned Saeed with a backslide. The crowd, when the TNA Impact Zone crowd dies, you fucked something up big time. So, finally, at the end, after it was over, Kong killed both women with clotheslines, and then picked up Sojo and powerbombed her hard, and she powerbombed her hard onto Raka.
This, I believe, was actually an attempt to kill them both.
This was someone so pissed off that she took her anger out on them legitimately.
Yeah. She didn't care if they lived or died. She wanted them gone.
I screamed when I saw this powerbomb. She powerbombed her so fucking hard, right onto Raka.
This was as hard as the Benoit and Eddie Guerrero powerbomb.
I won't go that far.
Except there was another girl there to take the bump, but this was brutal.
This is brutal in every sense of the word.
Yes, this match was unforgivably bad. I was trying to decide if this is worse than that famous Jackie Gata match.
Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck yes.
Yes, it was.
Fuck yes.
So, yeah.
One of the worst matches I've ever seen.
This is the worst match of the decade, I think. This was 2 thumbs down.
So then we had a rough cut, and awesome. Just awesome. They were talking about Ultimate X. Saban explained that in the first... They said this on television, everybody.
In a pre-tape. On a tape show.
On television. Saban explains that in the very first Ultimate X, they had posts up to hold the cables, and the day before the show, they all went to practice spots, and Frankie Kazarian jumped up on the cables, and all of the posts bowed in. He said it was not until 10 minutes before the pay-per-view started that they figured out they should use the lighting rigs. I swear to God Almighty.
Every part of that is what he said.
On television, they said this.
He talked about going over their fake match and what a rinky-dink piece of shit company he works for. And they showed the guys frantically at the last second trying to make an X with cables with the lighting, on the lighting rig over the ring right before the match. So they buried themselves. And I say again, in a pre-tape, on a tape show, they decided this was a good thing to put on TV.
Machine Guns against Jay Lethal and Consequences Creed in a ladder match for the X title.
Incorrect. It was a 4-way match.
Oh.
For a random, pointless, unneeded, accomplishing nothing, 4-way ladder match for the X Division Championship.
This match, let me tell you something. By the way, I didn't even notice Don West was gone for the rest of the show.
I did, and I kept thinking, this is better. So he made a poor case for his
TNA did fuck something up royally, and that was Shelley gave Lethal a sliced bread off a ladder. He climbed up and just grabbed the belt, and Mike Tenay said, and I quote, just like that.
Well, that's how it happened.
Yes, it was, in fact, just like that. This was the worst ladder match ever.
Without question. And I can't blame the guys, because Saban took one stupid bump like onto a ladder bridge, which it was a flat back bump. It was a normal height bump. It just happened to be on a ladder bridge, so there was very little give, and the ladder was there to make it uncomfortable. But other than that, no one did anything stupid, and I don't blame them, because they were put in an unannounced ladder match. No one knew what was happening. No one had any reason to tune in to see it. And it was only going to be 5 minutes, and they completely forgotten.
Think about being backstage.
I would have done a goddamn thing in this match.
Think about backstage when somebody went up to these four men and said, you guys are doing a ladder match tonight for the X title. You got 5 minutes.
And the person
5 minutes?
And the person who said this left the room, and they all looked at each other and said, what the fuck is this shit?
And speaking of leaving the room, of the 5 minutes this match lasted, I left the room, and I came back, and there was a commercial on.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't even get to see all 5 minutes.
And by the way, your useful stat for tonight, before the women's match, the aforementioned horrible women's match that we just talked about, the worst match of the decade, the match prior to that took place 56 minutes earlier.
There was 56 minutes of no wrestling.
There was 56 minutes without a single wrestling match on total nonstop action.
And given the match they finally gave us, it should have been 56 days.
So then Jarrett came out for the contract signing, and blah, blah, blah. Kurt signed. He gave Jarrett an Olympic slam. The fat security guys tried to break it up. And then Foley ran down, and he was fatter than both the fat security guards. Kurt hit him and put him in the ankle lock. Sting came down, hit Kurt in the leg with a bat. Sting helped Foley and Jarrett to their feet and then signed the contract. Fans were going haywire for Sting. He came off as a total babyface here. Of course, that means a swerve is coming, and it is a guarantee. And I also guarantee they're going to fuck up Sting, because the fans are ready for him to turn babyface, and I'll bet you anything he goes back heel within a month, and all the fans feel stupid.
All I know is after last week, usually all right, I will think things like, I did not enjoy this, but the fans are totally into it, so whatever. Or, boy, the fans are going crazy this week, that's a good sign. After seeing these fans, their opinion means nothing to me. I don't care what they think about anything. They're horrible.
This show, this sapped the life out of me.
I do feel, in one note before we go, at the end of the ladder match, here's Shelley celebrating on top of the ladder. Out comes Suicide. First of all, Suicide comes down in a zip line.
Oh, yeah.
Bonks into the ladder. And they had to cut away so we didn't see him selling and falling down. Then he killed everyone, hit a bunch of big moves, hit his wacky gun to the head pose, and Mike Tenay told us, Suicide comes alive. What?
Well, he's dead.
That
Suicide.
Worst catchphrase ever.
Suicide comes alive.
Oxymoronic slogan.